Hello everyone, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto the Ultimate is the friendly neighborhood 9 Tails? Part 1. Summary. Naruto Uzumaki died at the Valley of the Ends. Unfortunately for a certain Uchiha, Naruto the Kyuubi was born as a result. Now Naruto has to get used to living as a walking force of nature while Konoha learns to live with a mountainous fox in their backyard. Regular speak. Thoughts and flashbacks. Demonic or animalistic speak. Demonic or animalistic thoughts. Kyuubi seethed in his cage, his fur actually singed, unable to believe what had just happened. He wanted to yell at the boy for his incompetence and weak heart at not going for the killing blow against the Uchiha when their two enhanced attacks collided, but even the fox himself couldn't have predicted what happened. Sasuke didn't go for a killing blow either. He didn't even aim for the chest. And there was no way it was intentional, but Sasuke had hit, of all places, right into the seal on Naruto's stomach. Normally, this wouldn't be a bad thing. Seals on living hosts were not as easily destroyed, especially when said host had regeneration. However, the mix of the Uchiha's corrupted chakra had actually done damage to the seal. If this was because he was an Uchiha or if it was the cursed seal, Kurama didn't know. All he knew was that he felt the shock even in here. That wasn't the bad part. The bad part was the damage. Seals were complicated things, like multi-layered locks with extra contingencies possibly built in. The fourth seal was unlike other seals. It was infused with the death god's power, making so that even he, the greatest of the Biju, would die if this brat were to fall and never rise again. The seal had, unfortunately, lost part of its link to Naruto's life. The result of this was not Kyuubi being able to escape when the Uzumaki died, oh no. No, the result was the seal registered Naruto as dead, right now. Which he nearly was, but Kyuubi could bring him back even from being this close to death. Unfortunately, the seal didn't know that. All it registered was that Naruto was dead, and so was ensuring that the Biju would soon be as well. The Biju growled, sensing the death god's pull on his soul. It was just a tug, for now, but Kyuubi just knew it would start dragging him into the afterlife if he didn't do so willingly. The great demon sighed, not being able to believe this was his end. I am Kurama. Greatest of the tailed beasts. I, the one who dwarfed all my siblings in strength and size at my peak. I, who could level mountains and raised waves with a flick of my tail. I am to be laid low by a few humans with a knack for sealing. Exclamation mark single quote. He thought in outrage as he slammed his fist into the ground. I guess you were wrong. Father, he said softly, thinking back to the one human he ever liked, the Rakuto Sennin. Me and the rest aren't going to be reunited in any manner of the word. He lamented softly, feeling the pull getting harder. Cold, so death's grip really is cold, he mused to himself as he looked out of his cage, spying Naruto laying in the water, unconscious even in his mind. He blinked. His red eyes blinked as he looked at the boy, untouched by death's grip. Even without Kyuubi's chakra, he still clung to life like a starving man clung to food. Even as the great demon lay there dying from pure coincidence, the boy refused to die from all the strain and injuries the battle had caused him. Kurama's eyes slowly rose to look at the seal, right where he knew the lock was. He didn't know enough about sealing to alter the seal in any way, and even if he did, there was no way to escape the Shinigami's grip. A great hum echoed throughout the cage, ripples forming in the water as the Crimson Kitsune smirked. He didn't know enough about sealing, but he knew someone that did. He pulsed his chakra, staving off the Reaper's touch, just a bit. He had a little bit more time left before he left the world, with his own legacy. Meanwhile, Sasuke panted and sighed as he looked down at Naruto's prone form, down at the side of the river, from atop the cliff side facing the direction of the Sound Village. He actually hadn't been trying to kill Naruto in the end, deciding that he wouldn't kill Itachi just to become just like him in the end. However, the lone Uchiha was a bit unsure if Naruto would survive in his defense. It was his first time using the Curse Seal's second stage, and had hit Naruto's stomach when he meant to hit the chest, opposite side of the heart, as Naruto had survived a wound there already. He shook his head, deciding to head onwards before someone showed up and finished the job for Naruto. If he got the Mangekyo Sharingan, he'd know if Naruto had died. He stopped, just as soon as he had turned, as he felt something. He turned, slowly, looking down to see that same red chakra spreading out from Naruto by about 10 feet in all directions. It caused the river water to evaporate and turn into a cloud of steam, obscuring his view as it rose out of the valley. What now? Sasuke asked in annoyance and just a touch of dread. If Naruto pulled out a final trick, Sasuke doubted he could hold his own. He fell backwards, landing on his rear, as a pillar of blood-red chakra burst through the steam, climbing high into the heavens, shaking the earth with the sheer magnitude of its power. Sasuke could only stare, eyes wide as the malevolent chakra swept over him, almost like it was trying to choke the life out of every living thing in its reach. Meanwhile, Kakashi and Pakun stopped dead in their tracks, their eyes going wide as they felt the demonic chakra. The wind, light as it was, suddenly changed directions as the chakra reached them. Kakashi, that's. Pakun trailed off, unable to say it, almost unable to keep himself from dispelling in fear. Yeah, that's the Nine Tails all right, Kakashi confirmed with a steely look in his eye, and sweat on his brow as he looked up and saw the pillar of red chakra, high in the distance. Naruto. Sasuke, what did you do? He whispered in dread, about to continue running towards what might just be two more teammates he had failed. Wait, Kakashi, look. Pakun called out, pointing back to the pillar again with his paw. Kakashi looked back up at it, wondering what Pakun was pointing at, before looking confused as the center of the pillar started to turn a golden sunshade of yellow, steadily spreading and converting the rest of the pillar's light. Quote. Come on Pakun, we might not be too late after all, he ordered, confused but hopeful. Konoha. Lady Tsunade. Shizune yelled as she ran into the office, finding the Hokage staring out the window. I know, I felt it too, she confirmed grimly. Send out messages to all our shinobi. Have them recalled to the village immediately. She ordered, Shizune leaving with a nod. Anbu. She called, her guards appearing in an instant. Monkey, have everyone high Chunin and above mobilized. Tiger, instruct all mid Chunin and below to start evacuating the civilians. Mouse, have every clan head and the village elders informed. The Kyuubi has returned, she instructed, all of them nodding and obeying. But even they were obviously nervous. Naruto. Tsunade thought sadly, keeping up a strong front. Are you dead? Sarutobi's journals state that Kushina survived releasing the Kyuubi. Then again, there's little chance that your furry friend would let you live after being its prison for so long, she mused in sorrow. Jiraiya, you better get back here fast, you're the best shot we got if this really is Kyuubi returning. Valley of the End. Sasuke, like his sensei and unlike the Hokage, saw the golden chakra forming in the red pillar, spreading through the rest like a virus almost. But Sasuke, being much closer than Kakashi, could feel another change. The hate, the anger, the unholy bloodlust were all fading, but the sheer magnitude of power sweeping over the area was just as intense. His eyes dilated for a moment as the yellow chakra completely converted all the red chakra, the ground and air shaking violently for a second, before the pillar seemed to implode on itself, sending out a shockwave for miles in every direction and slowly scattering the steam. Sasuke slowly rose, barely able to bring himself to move, as he stared into the smoke, looking for any movement, any sign of, whatever had caused that much power. There was no way that Naruto had all of that. Just what does he have? What does Itachi want from Naruto? He wondered numbly, unwillingly in awe of what he had just witnessed. In an instant, he saw it. On pure instinct, he activated his Sharingan, ingraining the next few moments into his brain forever. A giant hand, with golden fur and enormous claws, rocketed out of the steam clouds, straight towards Sasuke. He jumped to his right, barely avoiding the great hand as it grasped onto the ledge. The Uchiha defector followed the length of the rather lanky arm, the strike having dispelled the smoke even more, and locked eyes with two giant slit blue eyes that were coming towards him, very rapidly, along with a set of equally giant fangs. Turning around to run as fast as he could, he soon found that his now enormous foe had leapt completely over him and landed at relatively short distance in front of him, making the Uchiha skid to a halt and back up. Just as he was about to attempt to hide in the trees from this beast, he went wide-eyed and ran back towards the valley as the golden mountain swiped its hands across the ground in a wide arc. The attack leveled the trees to the ground that weren't flung into the air, leaving no place to hide. With his back now against the ravine, he stared up at his adversary. The glaring blue eyes of a giant golden-furred fox bore down on him, with long ears that had black markings that went down and around the eyes. It was easily as big as the toad Naruto had summoned to fight Gaara. The fact that it was a giant fox, like the beast that had nearly destroyed his now former village over 13 years ago, should have registered first in Sasuke's mind. But it didn't. What registered instead were those blue eyes that stared into his very soul. There was no mistaking those eyes, even if they were slit. Naruto? He asked in disbelief in shock. Sasuke. The fox roared, truly roared, in a deep and growling voice that boomed from him fang jaw, his mere yelling shaking the valley as his 9 tails raised high above his head to swish angrily in the air, drawing Sasuke's attention to them. It can't be. There's no way. You're the Kyuubi. Sasuke yelled, unsure if he was angry or scared at that thought. Naruto, however, went wide-eyed before narrowing his gaze and growling dangerously. Teme. Naruto roared, almost unintelligibly, slamming two of his tails on the cliff on either side of Sasuke, causing it to collapse. The Sharingan user gritted his teeth, nowhere to jump to and too injured and low on chakra to try any significant wall running, as the ground fell out from underneath him. He gasped and silently screamed in agony as he suddenly found himself in the grip of a giant fox with opposable thumbs. He struggled to stay conscious as he looked up and saw Naruto was holding him right in front of his giant mouth, lathered with teeth that could rip through metal. Sasuke wasn't sure if it was the fear or the pain, but his world went black after that, his nightmares filled with the haunting images of a golden Kyuubi. With Sasuke unconscious, Naruto sat the runaway down on the ground as gently as he could. The blonde kitsune scowled as he sat on his rear and looked down at his human-like paws, opening and closing the furred fists as reality seemed to dawn on him. He had become the Kyuubi. He was now a giant fox with 9 new limbs to worry about. Out of all the things he could have done, he settled for sighing and running a paw through his head, trying to remember what happened. I may die, but the power of the 9 tails will not be so easily erased. This is my gift and punishment for you, brat. You will replace me as the Kyuubi, the strongest of the Biju. And if you fail me, if you disgrace my title, I will hound you in the next life we meet to no end. Go now, Naruto, my legacy. So say I, Kurama, greatest of the 9. That was what Naruto had heard, weakly, in his head as he began to transform in that pillar of chakra. The voice of the fox, tired yet triumphant, calling out to declare his power even as his soul was taken by death, to show that he refused to go without leaving something behind, something to prove that he had existed, that his might was not just a myth. Rough day? Kakashi asked, making Naruto blink himself back to the present to see his cyclops of a sensei was crouching on the end of his snout, giving him an eye smile. Sensei? Naruto asked in surprise, barely even feeling the weight on his nose, before blinking and glaring, you couldn't have gotten here a little earlier. He yelled, making Kakashi cringe and cover his ears while sending a lot of chakra into his feet to keep from being launched off. Don't yell. You'll make me go deaf. Kakashi yelled, his ears ringing a bit. Well, at least I know that's you, Naruto, he said, sticking a finger in his ear to hopefully clear it out. You know anyone else with blonde hair and blue eyes that is related to the words, Kyuubi no Kitsune? Naruto asked dryly. Right, Kakashi said sheepishly, There, any chance you can make yourself smaller? Preferably in human form, but a fox would be fine, he asked hopefully. Naruto stared at the silver-haired Jonin for a long time, making him very uneasy. What? He asked with a sweat drop. First off, get off my nose. My nose is starting to itch and my eyes are starting to hurt from trying to look at you there, Naruto requested evenly, getting a noise of understanding from Kakashi, who jumped down to stand on the head of Uchiha Madara, the statue closest to Naruto at the moment. Can you hear me up there, with those big ears? Kakashi asked curiously as he watched Naruto scratch his new nose. Yes, I can hear you just fine, Naruto answered with a sigh, and I just got this body. What makes you think I know a thing about making it smaller, let alone changing it into something else? He asked plainly. It was more wishful thinking than anything, Kakashi admitted, scratching the back of his head idly. You're not at all curious about what happened? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. In regards to the battle itself. Another time. As for what happened to you, I'm going to assume that Sasuke Chidori you in the seal. Kakashi guessed, Naruto's ears perking up a bit in surprise of that accurate guess, before dismissing it with a massive shrug. Shouldn't we get him back to Konoha? Naruto asked, jamming a thumb, and two tails, in Sasuke's direction only to blink and realize another Kakashi was already over there at the boy's side. I sent a clone to check on his vitals. He's exhausted and got a lot of stuff broken, but nothing seems fatal, Kakashi answered, looking sidelong up at Naruto, looking very unsure. I'm just trying to figure out how we should handle. He paused to wave at Naruto's massive size, this. Naruto sighed, a bit tiredly, at that reminder. Yeah, I don't think they'll be too happy to see a nine-tailed fox walking up to the village, Naruto admitted, his ears drooping. Naruto, you okay? Kakashi asked in concern. The golden kitsune gave him a tired, dry glare. No, sensei, I'm not. My best friend just tried to kill me. I'm tired, I've turned into a giant walking natural disaster, and I just want to go home and sleep. Naruto admitted. Sounds like a plan to me, Kakashi said with an eye smile, getting Naruto to perk up, looking at him oddly. My prank senses are tingling, Naruto said curiously as Kakashi chuckled and headed over to Sasuke, picking him in his arms. Naruto blinked as he looked over his shoulder with what looked like a glare, but was actually a squint. He hummed before shaking his head and walking onward with Kakashi. A man with a face that was half pitch black and half pasty white, and appeared to be part Venus flytrap, came out of the bark of a tree, sweating bullets as he stared at the behemoth of a fox. This could be trouble, the two voices said, each equally worried, as he disappeared into the tree again to report to the Akatsuki. This was not good, at all. A Kyuubi, however inexperienced, was not a foe to take lightly. Meanwhile, Kabuto flinched as he perceived the scowl beneath Orochimaru's now bandaged face. The snake Sannin had been forced to use a different body to switch with or risk dying, meaning he'd have to wait 3 years to switch again. What's worse, he found out that Sasuke's flight from Konoha had been foiled, meaning the Sound 4 and Kimimaro were probably all dead by now. Honestly, Kabuto couldn't think of a way this could end without his master being furious at the loss of the Uchiha. The fact that the Kyuubi seemed to be released, right at the border to Rice Country no less, was just the horrible desert to this meal of failures and disappointment. And yet, Kukuku, Orochimaru laughed with a small smirk. How very interesting, he commented with dark amusement. Lord Orochimaru? Kabuto asked, stunned at the reaction. You felt it, Kabuto. The hatred, the bloodlust, the malevolence crushing over the lands like a plague. Orochimaru asked toyingly. I did, Lord Orochimaru, but it feels as though it's faded away, Kabuto answered, a bit unsure. Exactly, Orochimaru affirmed smoothly, and yet, the oppressively massive chakra remains. One can feel it miles away, but it lacks the malice the Kyuubi has always possessed. What could that mean, my lord? Kabuto asked, confused and a bit worried. If I had to hazard a guess, I'd say our dear young Naruto has just stumbled his way into a new state of existence, he said musingly. A new state, milord? Surely you're not saying that? Kabuto asked in alarm, unable to understand this very simple idea. That the young container has become what he contained, the Kyuubi. Orochimaru confirmed with another chuckle, perhaps I was a bit too hasty. After all, depending on how Konoha reacts, I might have just found something new to study. After all, being immortal is one thing. But being a Biju, why, that's just short of godhood to us frail humans, Orochimaru mused. Milord, what about Sasuke? Kabuto asked curiously, still trying to swallow the idea that talentless Naruto could now be the strongest of the Biju. Leave him, Orochimaru said dismissively, as tempting as the Sharingan is, it is not worth bringing down the personal wrath of something of that magnitude. Only a fool would so readily make such a being perceive you as an enemy, he reasoned thoughtfully. Then, what do we do, sir? Kabuto asked with a gulp. Orochimaru turned to the medic ninja with a smirk. Calm yourself, Kabuto, it doesn't suit one of your skill to be so easily alarmed and unsettled. For now, we shall wait and see who the real fools in this game are, he answered, turning his senses outward. The wind of the Kyuubi, it might be enough to break the windmill itself. End of chapter. And this is the first chapter of a reimagined version of the classic idea of Naruto becoming the Kyuubi. Only, in this case, Naruto is not getting to turn into a human, Hanyo, or even little R, fox form. He is, for the foreseeable future, stuck as a giant fox. Now, this obviously isn't going to have Naruto getting Kurama's memories or anything like that from the fusion fix. However, Naruto will get some new personality traits that were partially caused by residual from Kurama's spirit, and partial YLJSUT him dealing with his new life. Still, few other details. Suand is gearing up for war as they might not have noticed the change in chakra very well from so far away. Zetsu, as in the anime, saw the whole fight and is a bit worried about the issues this could cause. And Kakashi is coping well with what's happened with his student. In my head, I imagine that he sat on the sidelines, staring for a while and then trying to motivate himself into jumping on Naruto's nose like that. Meanwhile, Orochimaru is not enraged about not getting Sasuke. The reason for this is that I feel fans portray him in an odd light, and I'm not even talking Abitu the pedo jokes. I'm talking about the fact that he's more obsessed and angry in Fix. In the anime, with some exceptions, he seems more amused and curious about most obstacles to his plans. And since he had to switch bodies before Sasuke got there, he probably doesn't mind since he'll have to wait 3 years anyway, 3 years that he can spend subtle studying the anomaly that is Naruto. Well, next chapter, we get to see how Konoha reacts to Naruto's new form and power. Friendly Neighborhood 9 Tails. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. Matsukaze Tenma thanks. To you as well. Matthew Rister right now. Book Lover 41 thanks. Guessed probably at some point, assuming he has them pre-time skip. The Sithari Yo Amki a very good point. XP. Guessed no, only one, but thanks for pointing that out. Manga Hero 18 true, not sure why more don't try them. Neo Cage Bunshin very true. Detra Metal very good question. DPDJ 1 thanks. Though, it's more of a conversion than a fusion. Retriever you'd think there'd be more of these. Jonalefum good to hear. W. John Craig 07 thank you for the link. Althalus 57 yep, Kakashi is a bit of a troll here, as he should be. As for the rest of the village and the elders, you'll have to wait another day for that. Guessed not really. Him not being able to transform is half the humor. JAIMOL more has arrived. Unsen Musho we'll see. XP. Regular speak. Thoughts and flashbacks. Demonic or animalistic speak. Demonic or animalistic thoughts. Beta. Dragon _ Wizard 91. AN Naruto is the size of Split Kurama, aka the size of the other Biju. They were ninja. Rank and overall experience regardless, they still understood the fact that their lives were filled with strangeness. From bending the elements to warping the mind to altering the body in the most bizarre ways, they were not easily stunned into silence. They were adaptable, they were reactive, they were ninja. Yet, seeing one Kakashi Hatake riding on the head of a golden version of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, I smiling down at them and asking if they need a lift. That was a bit too much for anyone. Kakashi sensei. Rock Lee called out in surprise, seeing his sensei's rival riding on top of the Biju. Yo! Kakashi greeted with a peace sign and an eye smile. Guy sensei is going to be most impressed if your flames of youth tamed such a beast. Lee announced, still too shocked to say much else. Gaara remained silent, eyes wide and wondering why Shukaku had suddenly gone so quiet. The behemoth Kitsune glared with a tick mark, making Konoha's miniature green beast gulp. He didn't tame anything, bushy brow. Naruto barked in annoyance. Said bark made Lee struggle to remain standing as the wind whipped by him. Kakashi just looked a bit sheepish at the scene. Naruto Uzumaki? Gaara asked slowly. Hua? Lee gaped in shock, his jaw dropping with comically wide eyes. Gaara? Naruto greeted, eyeing the red head for a moment. Nice new look, it suits you, he commented idly. Gaara legitimately didn't know how to respond to that. What do you say to a Biju complimenting your wardrobe? Thank you, he tried, looking to Kakashi with a raised eyebrow, who just smiled back. Gaara was sure the Cyclops had planned this on some level. Lee shook himself out of shock as he looked to Naruto in confusion. Naruto, you have been a giant fox of chakra this entire time. He yelled in disbelief. Naruto deadpanned at that. Yes, Lee, I was like this the whole time. I was tempted to release a few tales when you sent me spinning during our first meeting, he answered sarcastically. Now, play nice with us fragile ninja, Kyuubi-sama, Kakashi requested jokingly. Yosh! Lee cheered, to even Naruto's confusion, your flames of youth must truly burn brightly. To bind your enormous power, in a quest to find a worthy rival and to live among the mortals, all the while retraining your power. Truly inspiring. He yelled with fire in his eyes, as if inspired. Absolute silence followed. Bushy brow, that was a joke, Naruto informed as Lee blinked in confusion. I got all of this just now. Yesterday, taxonomy would have said I was human. Oh, apologies, Naruto. I must have misread your tone, Lee said with a grin, letting loose a loud but good-natured laugh as everyone's sweat dropped. Am I really that bad at sarcasm, or is it just not coming out right with this mouth? Naruto muttered, scrunching his eyebrows. No, it's just Lee, Kakashi informed with a whisper. So, you two need a lift? Kakashi asked, pointing his thumb towards Naruto's back. We could use a couple of extra hands in case Sasuke wakes up and tries to bolt again. That and I might crush him next time if I'm not careful, Naruto added in, tapping one of his fingers to the ground for effect and causing a minor tremor. Lee already exerted himself more than he probably should have, and I would wager you might outpace my sand with little issue, Gaara answered as he composed himself, using a sand cloud to levitate them up onto the fox's back. There they found Sasuke Uchiha, bound in chakra-suppressing tags, ropes and plastic handcuffs for good measure. You better not get sand in my ears, Naruto grumbled half-heartedly as he raised his head back up, eyeing the nearby area of the bone forest. Geez, Gaara, did you let Shukaku out to eat a summon boss? Gaara asked, looking back at the battlefield, realizing it looked like a boneyard to the uninformed. Our enemy could grow and manipulate his own bones, Gaara informed, not sure if Naruto was already aware of this or not. Did he summon or create a giant skeleton? Naruto asked bluntly. No, just a bone forest, Gaara answered, not fazed by the question. What a waste, Naruto grumbled as he started walking again, towering over the trees that he leveled with every footstep. I'm just going to assume that Shikamaru is, or was at the very least, where those leveled trees are. he stated, seeing the anomaly in the distance. Damn. One perk of this body. I got one hell of a view whenever I stand up, he mentally mused, enjoying his far-seeing gaze, enhanced by his size and sharper senses. That'd be a safe bet. Kakashi agreed. Well, that went well. If what Naruto told me is right, Choji and Neji were probably taken back to the village already, since they broke off first. Shikamaru and Kiba might still be there, with or without the medics being there, but they might already be running from the giant nine-tailed fox, Kakashi mused to himself. Meanwhile, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Tamari whispered in terror as she and Shikamaru ran and slid through an opening under a pile of trees. No one said anything about Biju. She snapped to the Nara, feeling the vibrations in the ground get louder. She had seen what the one-tailed tanuki could do, she had no desire to see what the nine-tailed fox could do. News to me too. I thought the Kyuubi was dead. Shikamaru retorted, sweat gathering on his forehead. What? You can't kill a... Tamari started, only for Shikamaru to cover her mouth quickly and point ahead of them, above from their laying position. There, bottom half pinned under the trees and smirking back at them, was Tayuya of the North Gate. Hello, she greeted, a small trail of blood leaking from her mouth, as they stared at her in horror. I'm going to die here, shitheads, there's damn near next to no chance of avoiding that. Still, I think I'd rather enjoy taking you cunts to hell with me, she said as they went wide-eyed, too far away to grab her and with too little room to attack her, not to mention the shaking getting worse and worse. Hey furball. Come here, I got a snack for you. A leaf sand banana split. Don't worry, you can have me as the cherry on top. She yelled up to the sky with a vicious grin. Wow, the ladies really do go for the cute and fluffy stuff. One is already offering their virginity to you, a voice said from right above the tree logs. Wait, I know that voice, Shikamaru mused, Tamari nodding in confusion. What the oh, you got to be shitting me. Tayuya growled in frustration. Good news, shitbrains, it's your friends. Now get out of here so I can gag on my own tongue in peace, she informed with a scowl. The two blinked, looking to each other before slowly crawling back out. They nearly shat their pants as they peeked out and saw the giant nose and teeth hovering just a dozen feet above them. Oh gods. One, or both, of them squeaked. You two have fun in there? Kakashi asked with an eye smile, appearing behind them as they jumped in alarm, Tamari about to strike with her fan. Kakashi. Shikamaru shouted in surprise. According to my birth certificate, yes, Kakashi answered with a chuckle. Don't sneak up you, Tamari yelled, jumping as the titanic kitsune snorted and blew hot air on her. She shivered as she stared up into those blue eyes, that held some kind of evil intent in them as her brother sat on its forehead. Wait, what? Gaara, she called up in surprise, seeing the red head standing up there with a curious expression on his face. Then he did the strangest thing ever, of all time. Shikamaru and Tamari, sitting in a tree. Kissing, he sang off in a monotone, leaving Tamari gaping as her mind shut down. I fail to see what this has to do with being a younger sibling, Naruto, Gaara commented in confusion. Gaara. While I may not have a family, I have observed many in envy. And siblings, older and younger, always take time out of their days to embarrass their siblings every now and again, Naruto said sagely with an amused yet tired smirk. Wait, Tamari said slowly. Did he just say? Shikamaru continued. Naruto. They both finished as they looked at the golden mountain before looking back down to an imaginary outline of Naruto. They looked back and forth several times before they came to the same conclusion. Whaaa. Shut the up. Naruto bellowed, covering his ears as he jerked upwards. Yeah, his ears are a bit sensitive at the moment, Kakashi informed, wiggling a finger in his own while Tamari and Shikamaru swayed from the onslaught their ears just endured. Naruto, please do not jerk around so much. You almost sent Sasuke flying into the horizon. Lee requested, one arm grabbing the thick fur and the other holding onto one of the Uchiha's bonds. Quote. Hey, Cyclops, Tayuya called with a blank expression, eyebrow raised, and still trapped beneath the logs. Am I hallucinating here? Is the blood loss getting to me? She asked curiously. No, this is real, Kakashi assured with an eye smile. Then all you leaf ninjas are batshit crazy, Tayuya said bluntly. Says the woman working as a lapdog for the mad scientist born and raised in the leaf, Naruto countered with a smirk. Wasn't on his damn resume, Tayuya muttered with an eye roll. Quote. What rock did Orochimaru find you under that you didn't know that? Kakashi asked with a raised eyebrow. Don't you mean what log he found her under? Naruto corrected with a smirk. Screw you, furball, Tayuya yelled with a growl. With what? Naruto retorted with a head tilt. No, seriously, with what? Your over-fluffed tails, you piss-stained fox. Tayuya rebutted. That's just some weird version of masturbation, Naruto countered with a raised eyebrow, suppressing a smirk. No need to insult someone on their deathbeds, Naruto. That's just cruel, Kakashi mock scolded. This is getting weird, Tamari noted with a sweat drop. Quote. So that's how it is, huh? Shikamaru asked calmly after a moment, getting everyone's attention. Naruto looked at him with a scowl, knowing that Shikamaru was, while a friend, too smart at times. I knew you were something special, Naruto. Troublesome, extra troublesome, but special. Just wasn't expecting it to be this big, he continued, scratching his head with a sigh. Quote. Just get your pineapple head on my back before I leave you two behind, Naruto grumbled with a glare, holding out a palm for them as Kakashi shunshined back onto his head. Kakashi, get back down there, Naruto said bluntly as he lifted the two intellectuals up far enough to jump the rest on their own. Huh, how come? Kakashi asked curiously. 'Cause we're not leaving her, Naruto answered bluntly. What? Why the hell would we save her? Tamari asked with a scowl, Shikamaru raising an eyebrow. What about me? Tayuya called up, straining her ears to hear anyone besides the overgrown fox. Naruto, she's an enemy ninja, Shikamaru pointed out. Naruto let out a long and annoyed sigh, one of his tails snapping in aggravation. Okay, the nice answer is because I don't want to leave a fellow ninja in a state where she's likely going to be either eaten alive by wild animals or captured by anyone else that might have been drawn by all the commotion, but if you want a pragmatic answer, it's because she works for Orochimaru and can give us info after we save her. Naruto answered, his voice getting louder with his frustration. Or did I dream up that class lesson that shinobi use capture and interrogation? There was a long silence after that before Kakashi looked over his shoulder, eye smiling at the passengers. Anyone else want to argue with my adorable and fluffy student? He asked cheerfully. You're his sensei. Control him, Tamari whispered with a glare. A. He can hear you. B. I'm not stupid enough to try. C. Even if I was, the answer is still hell no. And D. He's right, Kakashi listed off effortlessly. Any more stupid comments or questions from the supposed geniuses? Naruto asked dryly, Tamari gulping a bit but remaining silent. No. Good. Sensei. Hurry up so I can go home. I believe Naruto's flames of youth are being replaced with flames of annoyance, Lee commented to himself. You know, if you are just going to freaking torture me, feel free to just eat my ass, Tayuya said flatly. Sensei. One more sex joke and I'll never let you read Ika Ika in peace. Ever, Naruto warned, making the man pause, looking up at the blonde as if debating if the Biju could actually succeed in such an endeavor. Quote. Think you can lend a paw here? Kakashi requested, motioning to the logs. Naruto gave an enormous eye roll at that. Lazy pervert, he muttered, starting to move aside the, to him, tiny bits of wood while trying not to further crush the redhead. Quote. This is one of the weirdest days I've ever had, Tamari commented with a sigh as she sank down onto the soft, golden fur. Tamari. Gaara said, causing her to look up at him curiously. What did Naruto mean by a weird version of masturbation? He asked with a head tilt. There was an awkward silence, which was quickly and violently broken by the new Biju. Oh hell no. Gaara, you are not getting an advanced birds and bees lesson on my back. Naruto snapped, glaring over his shoulder at his passengers, making them all shiver under the gaze of the giant blue orbs. It's bad enough you're using a goddamn Biju as a taxi service, leave the some dignity, Yuya commented, a clone of Kakashi holding her bridal style as the original jumped back on Naruto's head. Now you're on his side? Shikamaru asked with a raised eyebrow. The crippled sound Kunoichi shrugged, I'm royally and screwed just as epically no matter what I do. I figure I might as well as enjoy whatever is going on here, Yuya said with a shrug as Kakashi's clone brought her up onto Naruto's back, staying around to keep an eye on her. Quote. So, what was that about you and Gaara's sister doing the split, Shikamaru? Naruto asked with a dry smirk as they both face-palmed. Quote. I feel like I'm not getting a reference, Gaara commented blankly. Kakashi and his clone just chuckled to themselves. Well, this just keeps getting more interesting, Naruto. He asked as the fox trotted. Interesting, right, exactly the word for it, Naruto muttered with a small smile. Meanwhile, Konoha wasn't the only one reacting to the birth of the new Kyuubi. No, most of the continent knew something was up by now. Perhaps few more so than a single red-headed Kunoichi in the grass village. Being a censor, Karen had sensed something going on in the east, something powerful but distant. But the moment the full power of the Kyuubi had been unleashed, the instant that pillar of vile chakra formed, she collapsed to her knees, retching as her stomach emptied its contents onto the ground. It was too powerful, too sinister and overwhelming for her to even cope with. As if it was going to burn away her soul. Her entire body went numb as she mentally stared at it, unable to look away. She didn't even realize her nose started to bleed from the stress it caused her, or that her arms clawed into her side. Then, all at once, there was a light in the darkness, a gentle warmth amongst the burning hatred. It was small at first, but quickly grew as the hatred weakened, as if cleansing or feasting on the hatred of that chakra to add to its own. With time, the flicker of light became a beacon, then an fire, until it was like she was staring into the sun itself. Comforting and life-giving, but completely overwhelming all the same. Quote. Where am I? She asked, blinking herself back to consciousness, finding herself in a hospital bed. You gave us quite a scare there, Karen, a female voice noted. Karen's head shot up and stared at the woman next to the door, Kasukabe. She greeted in surprise. While Karen wasn't exactly happy with the situation she inherited from her mother, she did have some allies among the grass, if not outright friends. This petite, short-haired brunette with brown eyes was certainly one of them. The Kusa Gensui was a bit worried when one of our most gifted censors fainted in the middle of the street, the Chunin commented idly as she sat on the bed, a white cat with two different colored ears, one brown and the other gray, sitting on her lap. Karen rolled her eye at that title. Since they weren't one of the major villages, their leader wasn't officially recognized as a cage by the rest of the world. So, the person running a lesser village either gave the middle finger and took the title anyway or, more normally, took up a different title. The Kusa Gensui, or Grass General, was theirs. Karen. What happened? Yu Kasukabe asked with a serious expression as she petted her cat. Quote. I don't know, Karen answered absently, mostly honest, I felt this, chakra isn't even the word for it. It was like looking into the heart of hatred itself. But the raw power it excluded nearly crushed my mind, she answered softly, clenching the bed sheet. Calico sensed it too, Yu answered, her cat meowing his agreement. He said it was like being the mouse for once, only against a saber-tooth, she quipped lightly, her feline friend glaring at her jab. Quote. Kasukabe, what did happen? Karen asked curiously, cautiously. The Chunin shook her head, we're still verifying it, with scouts heading to the border, but, she paused, looking at Karen with a steely glance. "We think the Kyuubi returned, at the border of the land of fire no less," she answered with a scowl. Karen gaped openly at that, her eyes dilated as she processed that. "How far?" she asked numbly. "The Valley of the End, by the looks of it," Yu answered solemnly. It hit Karen like a ton of bricks. That's still 2 whole countries away from here, nearly 3. All that distance and it was still that intense. She thought in disbelief. She had known about the Biju, everyone did, but she never imagined just how outclassed the average ninja was to one of them, let alone the strongest of them. "Karen," Kasukabe spoke strongly, putting a hand on Karen's shoulder, snapping her out of her trance. "I know you've been through a lot already, but can you tell me where the Kyuubi is now?" she asked, leaving the unspoken question in the air. Is it getting farther away or closer? Karen would normally be a bit annoyed at that moment, but swallowed her tongue as she cautiously leaked her sensor ability back out. She was very glad she couldn't go blind with her sensing ability, or she would have already. She blinked as she found what she was looking for. "I have good news in." Karen trailed off unsurely. "Bad news?" Kasukabe asked with a raised eyebrow. "No, I don't know what to call it, but it's news," Karen answered in confusion. "It is getting further away. I'd say it's a halfway to the center of Fire Country, but don't quote me on that," she answered, having trouble locking onto that mass of chakra's precise center. "That is good. I can tell the Gensui were not about to die," Kasukabe said with a small smirk. "And the other news?" "I thought I was imagining it or just feeling relief after my sensor ability shut off, but." Karen paused, scrunching her eyebrows. "It's different." "What is?" "The Kyuubi," Kasukabe asked with a frown. "Yeah, the hatred is gone. All the malevolence, everything is gone. Now it just feels warm. Still massively powerful, but not burning your mind with hatred." Karen rambled a bit. "I have no way to describe it adequately. Am I making sense at all?" Yes. What you're saying? Not really," Kasukabe answered, not sure what could make a Biju change the nature of its chakra. "That thing must really not like Konoha, if it's heading Ba," Karen muttered, freezing in shock. "Karen?" Yu questioned in concern, seeing the red head sitting there with a pale expression. I think it saw me," Karen whispered fearfully. "It looked right at me, I swear." Meanwhile, Naruto. "Everything okay?" Kakashi called up from the rocky river, seeing Naruto looking off to the northwest with a suspicious glare on his face, giving him a very angry look. I think someone is watching me," Naruto noted idly, everyone's sweat dropping. "Yeah, probably everyone in the elemental nation is one way or another looking in your direction," was the general thought shared amongst everyone. "Anyway, Kiba and Kankuro aren't here," Kakashi said as he looked around the area again. "They must have killed their opponents and hightailed it out of here when they saw us coming," he deduced. "Can't imagine why," Tamari muttered sarcastically. Naruto ignored that, focusing on his sensei's words. "Opponents. Kiba was only fighting one guy," Naruto noted with a head tilt. "Well, this other guy is either a twin or a clone, so he might have been hiding somewhere," Kakashi answered with a shrug. We'll get the story from them when we get back," Naruto decided with a shrug as his sensei jumped back on. "Any more stops?" "Unless you want to go sightseeing," Kakashi suggested, holding his hands up in a shrug. "Maybe tomorrow," Naruto answered, yawning a bit, coming off as a loud roar. "You sure Neji and Choji are back in the village?" Naruto questioned even as he continued his walking, Kakashi having leapt up back onto his back. "With you walking around?" "Definitely," Kakashi answered evenly. "The medics probably rushed them back the moment they thought the old Kyuubi was back." Naruto grunted at that, choosing to not make a comment to that but instead occupying himself with some eavesdropping. "So, any chance in hell of you bastards letting me squeal and skip the whole torture part?" Tayuya asked in a grumble. "Maybe, but depends on Enko's mood. She has a personal desire to squeeze every ounce of info on Orochimaru out of you," Kakashi informed idly. Great, Tayuya muttered. Still, assuming you don't try to lie or leave anything else, they might be lenient since none of ours died on this mission so far at least, Kakashi added on thoughtfully. Now who's being cruel? Shikamaru muttered under his breath with a sweat drop. Naruto, Gaara called out absently, getting everyone's attention and receiving a loud hum. The Kyuubi, the old one. Is it? He's dead, Naruto answered bluntly, no obvious show of sadness or happiness over that fact. Gaara's eyes went wide at that statement. Gaara, are you okay? Temari asked, leaning over to place a hand on his shoulder in concern. Gaara slowly looked to her with shocked eyes. He's wailing, he answered numbly as Temari looked confused. Shukaku is sobbing. Temari looked shocked at that herself, the rest as well, openly gaping at her little brother while Kakashi narrowed his eye at that. But unseen to the others, Naruto scowled as he marched on towards home. End of chapter. There we go, chapter 2. Here we have Kakashi and Naruto pranking everyone by being completely and utterly casual about the Naruto is a Kyuubi no Kitsune now thing. Naruto, while understandably drained, is enjoying it all the same. And someone needs to teach Gaara a few things, apparently. Anyway, Tayuya got saved, but her ultimate fate is up for debate. Who knows, maybe Naruto will eat her, lol. As for Karen, I did some research and found that she was in Kusa for a while, so I had her still there when this went down and boy did she get overloaded. Also, Yu Kasukabe is a character from Problem Children are coming from another world, aren't they? He personality and ability seemed like a good thing to put in the Grass Village, a place known for its diplomacy. Moving on, yes, the world at large is already start to catch on that something strange is going on. Some already gather that the Kyuubi is back, but only a few have got an idea of what happened. Final knot, I came up with the title Kusa Gensui because the 5 major villages are the only ones with recognized cages. In the filler with the Star Village, Sakura even found it surprising that the village called its leader a cage, hinting that anything like an Amekage or Kusakage would equally be seen as odd. Not much else to say. Hope you all enjoyed this. The trek to the village was quiet. Or, at least as quiet as a walking kaiju kitsune could be. So, we're just going to walk straight up to the village like this? Shikamaru asked slowly. Yes, Naruto answered bluntly. Don't worry, I'll send a shadow clone ahead to inform the Hokage, Kakashi assured with an eye smile over his shoulder. Shouldn't we vacate his back then? You know, in case they try some kind of preemptive strike. Temari asked nervously. I should be able to protect against anything that should reach us, Gaara pointed out neutrally. And I'm fairly sure I can take a hit or two, Naruto mused. You're just oozing with self-confidence, Tayuya snarked with a smirk. You got one of those curse seal thingies, right Red? Naruto asked with a scowl. Yeah, why? Tayuya asked with a blink. Did you know what your new body could do the first time? Naruto pointed out dryly. I see your point, Tayuya said sheepishly. I didn't even know I had horns until the third Tim Wow. The entire mountain of fur, muscle, and chakra came to a complete halt, sending everyone jerking and Kakashi nearly falling off the head. What the hell, Naruto? Shikamaru asked, blushing as he found his head between Temari's open legs. You had horns, Naruto repeated in a deadpan. Red, please tell me that somebody made horny jokes. Everyone, especially Tayuya, face-palmed at that. Yes, asshole, they did. She answered in irritation. Oh thank you. Someone had to have, but I'd rather it not be me, Naruto said with a sigh of relief as he began walking again. Naruto, a little warning would be most appreciated. Lee called, nearly losing his lunch at that sudden stop. Which he found strange, as he never had that problem before when moving at high speeds, but he had never rode a biju either. Consider it training for riding on a giant summon's head. Naruto called back with a chuckle. That is true, Kakashi admitted. Though, in fairness, Fur seems to be harder to hold onto with chakra, he mused thoughtfully, remembering riding on some toads with his sensei a few times. Naruto. Gaara spoke up. Shikamaru had his head between Temari's legs. Does that warrant another song? Gaara asked curiously. Kakashi almost laughed as he saw the enormous ears perk up at that and felt the massive muscles moving beneath his feet as the eyes widen. What the are you two doing on my back? Naruto yelled in outrage. Nothing. We swear. Temari promised quickly. It was an accident, honest. Shikamaru added in. I don't know, your face was getting really deep in there, Tayuya teased with an evil smirk as they glared at her. What is with you? Temari yelled in a hiss. You paralyzed me, Tayuya hissed back. Ah, to be young again, Kakashi said wistfully. They can be young off my back. Naruto snapped. New rules. No, making out, or anything else eki on my back. I'm not a taxi and I am not a place for a quickie. Not even if it's two girls. Kakashi proposed with an eye smile. Maybe. Naruto conceded after a long moment. Really? Temari asked blankly. My back, my rules. You got a problem with it, I can give you the express route home, Naruto said, making them all flinch as one of his tails snapped in the air. You know, a shadow clone might dispel on the way. I think I'll go in person, Kakashi said cheerfully as he walked to the side of Naruto's head. Wait, you're leaving us here alone? Temari asked with a bit of panic. Of course not. I'm leaving you with my fluffy student. He'll take good care of you, Kakashi promised as he jumped off the side and vanished in a swirl of leaves. Temari watched over the edge, to where he had vanished, slowly looking up to the Goliath, slit blue eye, watching her without amusement. Got a problem with that, Sandy? No, everything is peachy, Temari assured quickly, scurrying back to her seat. What the ever-living shit is wrong with you? Tayuya asked blankly. I'm sorry, but I'm still a bit intimidated by the gargantuan forest animal filled with razor-sharp teeth, Temari said with a sickly sweet smile. We don't have many summons in Suna, Gaara filled in offhandedly. The fact that I beat your brother as a human probably doesn't help much, Naruto said with a smirk. No offense, Gaara. None taken, Gaara answered uncaringly. Wait, what? Lee and Tayuya asked at the same time. Oh, you never heard, Lee. Gaara was going full raccoon mode during the invasion, so I ended up fighting him before he killed anyone, Naruto supplied with a shrug. Please don't shrug, Lee requested weakly. So you up a Biju, before you were a Biju? Tayuya asked slowly, smirking a bit. Goddamn, Foxy. I wouldn't put it like that, Naruto said awkwardly. Shukaku wouldn't either, Gaara informed, hearing his demon grumble about the insults. At least it wasn't wailing anymore. Though, the sniffles were still a bit disturbing. They all fell into an uncomfortable silence before Naruto let loose a mighty sigh. So, okay, screw it, the silence is boring. Red, why did you join up with the snake? Naruto asked with a scowl. Tayuya paused, considering her options before giving the situation a shrug, didn't really have anything else. I was an orphaned brat in some back alley town, living on the streets, she answered uncaringly. Know the feeling, Naruto said with an eye roll. Would you have taken the offer? Tayuya asked curiously. Probably not, but just because I'd like to think the guy would have come off as too creepy for me to consider, Naruto said idly. True, but, well, no offense, but I didn't want to end up as some gross-ass toy. At least with Orochimaru I got to be a bit badass, Tayuya said with a smirk. Better than Tem's reason, Naruto said with a snort. He's still out cold, by the way, Tayuya informed. Good to hear. I really can't put up with his bull right now, Naruto said with a sigh, impatient little. Naruto, you do remember you were the smallest of us, right? Shikamaru reminded with an arched eyebrow. And now you're all bite-sized, Naruto said in annoyance. Could you all stop pissing off the Biju here? Tayuya requested with a groan. Everything we say pisses him off. Tamari countered. Sue me, pigtails. I'm tired after the day I've had. Naruto snapped with a growl. Tamari, Gaara addressed neutrally, please shut up. Now. Meanwhile, Tsunade would admit it. She had no idea what the hell she was getting into. She hadn't been here when the Kyuubi got free all those years ago, she had not seen the destruction it wrought, nor had she felt the pure overwhelming power of its chakra. The air grew heavy when it was still a distant blur, announcing its presence for all to take notice of it before they even felt the ground trembling. Everyone, get into position. She declared loudly from outside the walls before bringing her hand down as a great cloud of smoke appeared around her. Tsunade-sama, you called? Katsuya asked respectfully. Against a Biju, a summon had two initial uses, either a surprise attack or as a diversion for the demon to focus on. She chose the latter. Katsuya, I'm actually sorry to bring you into this, Tsunade said with a sigh, the Kyuubi is free again. I see, Katsuya acknowledged with just a hint of hesitation, I will aid you in any battle, Tsunade-sama, but I fear I won't be of great aid against such a foe. Tsunade smirked a bit, don't sell yourself short, Katsu. Besides, your first role here is keeping its attention while we spring some traps to stall it, she informed. Slow it? Katsuya questioned. Yeah, Jiraiya definitely felt it too, so we're holding up until he gets his ass back here, Tsunade explained with a scowl as she looked over her shoulder. There were at least 100 ninja dotting the walls of Konoha, now seemingly empty with every non-combatant in the safe houses. I don't particularly like the plan, but it is the best option, Katsuya agreed as she watched the enlarging shape approaching them. Tsunade-sama, does there seem something strange about the Kyuubi to you? She asked, sounding like she would frown if her face allowed it. She had never seen the Kyuubi in person, but something was off about it. That would be the nice shade of gold you're noticing, instead of the usual crimson, Kakashi said merrily from Tsunade's left, making her nearly jump in surprise. Not normally something that he could do, sneaking up on a cage, but with her attention on the giant fox approaching, he couldn't resist. And thank every survival instinct he had to duck under that annoyed punch, Kakashi. I thought you had gotten eaten, Tsunade commented in surprise, what took you so long? It's a long story, Hokage-sama, Kakashi said with an eye smile, however, I do know a way to help the situation, he assured confidentially. Oh, do tell, Tsunade requested, knowing Kakashi had been there that night, even if they hadn't let him participate. Surely he would have some sound advice. Stand down, Kakashi said in a blunt, calm, casual voice. Excuse me, what? Tsunade asked with a scowl, did you just tell me to stand down while a Kyuubi is marching on our village? Yes I did, Kakashi answered, unfazed and eye smiling. And why, pray tell, would I do that instead of having you committed for obvious insanity? Tsunade asked with glare. Because, as you said, it's a Kyuubi, not the Kyuubi, Kakashi answered vaguely. What are you babbling? Tsunade asked, scrunching her brow at the statement. In response, Kakashi held up a pair of binoculars for her. She raised an eyebrow, but took them nonetheless, looking through them. The Kyuubi was indeed different, as there was no way they got the hair and eye colors so far off. Instead of a fox with red fur and eyes running at the village, she had one calmly walking towards them with golden fur and blue eyes. You can't be serious, Tsunade whispered as the binoculars slipped from her hand in shock. Mission success, Hokage-sama, Kakashi said with a salute, smirking a bit at her. I suggest letting my student report in so he can drop off our escapee and his passengers, Kakashi recommended. Tsunade looked to Kakashi for a moment, then back at the still approaching fox, its features now plain without aided sight. The fox looked more than a bit annoyed, but mostly tired. Stand down. Everyone stand down. Tsunade yelled at the top of her lungs, echoing throughout the area. Several shinobi, confused and fearful, quickly jumped out of the path of the approaching Biju. The fox didn't even look at them, continuing towards the village with eyes locked dead on Tsunade. Tsunade-sama, Katsuya asked nervously as the beast of living chakra got closer and closer, the ground shaking more and more with every step. Just trust me, Katsuya. If I'm wrong, you can kill Kakashi, Tsunade promised as she could hear various shinobi talking in voices of fear and terror. The copycat ninja just smiled at the threat, the ground shaking beneath them. Or, rather, the giant slug underneath them was, but same difference. Katsuya trusted Tsunade, and respected her greatly. But as the great vulpine head eventually came to loom so close to her own form, she couldn't help shivering in fear. There was a lengthy silence as the Biju stared down the cage, every last soul watching in anticipation. You lose weight, Ba-chan? Naruto asked with a small smirk. Naruto. Tsunade screamed in utter disbelief. Sure, she suspected it, but hearing it was another thing. Coincidentally, several other ninja yelled the same name around the same second Tsunade did. This led to everyone who didn't already start putting two and two together, to gap in disbelief. Yes, now quit your yelling, all of you. Naruto yelled back as he rubbed his ears, silencing all of them with his booming voice and making several ninja fall backwards in fright. Yes, to answer your question, I'm a Megaton Fox now, deal with it. Naruto snapped as he rubbed his head, looking over the village to see all the faces either confused or terrified, or both. That's Naruto. Sakura whispered numbly. The baka is a kaiju, Ino whispered dumbly. Wait. So, the Gaki became the fox. Anko commented, blinking owlishly, how does that even work? This could be problematic, Hiyashi summarized evenly, trying not shiver when he swore the creature looked at him. He's a bit tired and grouchy, Kakashi whispered to Tsunade. I can see that, Tsunade whispered back. I can still hear you, Naruto said with a glare, making many of the onlookers clam up in worry that he could hear them. First downside of being a Megaton Fox, everything is louder. Tsunade swallowed briefly as she tried to stare down the Kyuubi no Naruto. Naruto, what did you do? She asked, trying to sound stern with moderate success. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. I won. Now will all of you assholes get off my back. I was actually starting to relax until Lee puked on me. Naruto called over his shoulder as he heard several people make noises of disgust at that. Second downside of being a Megaton Fox, everyone can hear everything you say. Sorry, Naruto, I am unused to this form of movement, Lee apologized weakly, too low for any save Naruto to hear. Yeah, bush eyebrow. Gaara, could you? Naruto requested. A few seconds later, a large cloud of sand hovered off of Naruto's back, transporting two Suna ninja, two Konoha ninja, one crippled Odo ninja and one bound traitor, the last of which was now awake and struggling in his bounds. Yeah, Duckbutt Head woke up, Tayuya commented as they were lowered onto the still nervous slug boss, the Uchiha muffling something as he tried to look at Naruto with an alarmed and pale expression, least he's gagged. You said it, Naruto said with an eye roll. Right now, he really didn't want to deal with anything, really. Mission complete, Lady Hokage, Shikamaru greeted awkwardly. Tsunade stared at the group for a long time. Anbu, get the Uchiha to a cell and the rest of them to the hospital, she ordered loudly, several masked figures appearing to take them away, a bit slower than normal as they stayed cautious around the Biju. Tsunade turned to the Suna shinobi awkwardly. You two are free to find your brother is somewhere in the village, she informed. The siblings nodded, Tamari vanishing in a shunshin while Gaara glanced back at Naruto for a moment before disappearing in a swirl of sand. The remaining group fell into an awkward silence. So, what's with the red head with the broken legs? Tsunade asked with a raised eyebrow. Screw you, tit-whoring bitch, Tayuya swore in annoyance. What did you just say? Tsunade asked, one part pissed, one part shocked. She's one of Orochimaru's guards, sent out to bring Sasuke to him. Naruto suggested we bring her back for information, Kakashi explained awkwardly. And as I went to the trouble of carefully digging her out from under a pile of trees, I'd appreciate you not crushing her skull, Granny, Naruto commented pointedly. Listen to the fox, skank, Tayuya said with a smirk. That said, feel free to get a Hyuga to make her mute if she doesn't stop with that, Naruto said blankly. Asshole, I thought you liked me. Tayuya asked with a pout. I do, but I like Granny more, Naruto answered with a smirk. Tsunade sighed, Naruto, we are going to need a long talk about all of this, she informed, wiping a hand over her face. Okay, let me stop you right there, Tsunade, Naruto said flatly, getting the blonde's attention with the use of her name. I basically just died and got turned into a mass of chakra. I am confused, I am pissed, I am grouchy, I am miserable for so many reasons, but most of all, I am tired as shit. So anything you need to hear from me can wait until tomorrow. As it is, I am going to go curl up behind the Hokage mountain and I am going to hopefully have my first nap as a megaton fox, he ranted, staring down at her evenly, daring her to say otherwise. Tsunade gulped subtly before nodding, very well, dismissed. Tsunade answered unsurely, not entirely certain what to say in this situation. Smooth, Kakashi jabbed flatly, getting a glare for his effort, have a nice nap, my fluffy student. He called out with an eye smile and a wave. Naruto rolled his eyes before glancing down. Katsuya, right? He asked lazily. Why yes, Q Naruto-sama. Katsuya greeted shakily. Huh, I think this is the first time we've actually met, Naruto noted idly before shrugging. Well, as pointless as it was, thank you for helping protect the village, he commented before he started to walk around the village. Katsuya gulped. Tsunade-sama, if there is nothing else, I need to return home now, Katsuya requested, not wanting to piss all over the village's figurative front lawn. You can go, Tsunade answered in understanding, turning to Kakashi. What, in the name of my ancestors, made you think bringing him right up to the front gate was a good idea? She asked with a glare. Kakashi shrugged. We had a high-asset target, various comrades exhausted, and a crippled prisoner, and Naruto wanted to go home and sleep, so I wasn't about to argue with the, quote, megaton fox, unquote, he answered casually. And you thought that justified a village-wide panic? Tsunade demanded. To be honest, Lady Hokage. Kind of, yes, Kakashi answered bluntly as he stared at her, completely serious. The village was always going to react badly to this no matter what, at least initially. Naruto has a tough time ahead of him right now, so I thought it best to let him know this can still be his home rather than making him stay at a figurative arm's length, miles away. Unless you want to explain to the daimyo why there is a giant golden fox wandering and sleeping around all of Fire Country and avoiding here. Kakashi explained unapologetically. Quote. You've thought this out, Tsunade commented in slight surprise. No, Tsunade, I didn't. I just saw my student needed some reassurance and some rest, he retorted with an eye smile. Tsunade groaned as she rubbed her forehead. I should really demote you or something for this. For now, just fill me in on what you know, she requested. That, I can gladly do. Though, if you want the full story, I'd sug. Naruto's first night at the beach was quiet. That was the only word for it, really. His week atop the Hokage mountain had involved him falling asleep with the entire nighttime cacophony of the village in his ears. Drunks at bars, dogs barking, couples arguing, babies crying, people screaming from nightmares. Every sound in the village, and he had learned to tune it out. Compare that to these shores. The gentle crashing of the waves, the wind blowing through branches. Some might even call it peaceful. And he was alone in another way now. What was he going to do? Hokage was off the table. He literally wasn't human now. Protecting the village was obvious, for reasons both personal and practical. But before, he had a life beyond being a ninja. Friends, places he liked to go, and things he liked to do. How does one have a life as a biju? A very loud and sudden pop made him look over in surprise to see a large cloud of smoke. He scowled and grew fairly confused as the smell of toad invaded his nose. Nice night, Naru boy. What are you doing here, Gamabunta? Naruto asked, glancing off to the trees where he knew Jiraiya was. Why'd the pervy sage drag you out here? You look like you can't sleep, and he thought you could use some company of a similar size, Gamabunta informed, taking a long inhale of his pipe. You're not exactly the type to pop in for a friendly visit, Naruto remarked skeptically. Gamabunta sighed. Well, I've been wondering how you were doing, being this new Kyuubi and all. And I did stab you, so a visit is the least I owe you. Naruto growled thoughtfully before looking back out to the sea. I guess I can't hold it against you too much. I probably made you piss yourself. You sure did, Naruto. Naruto did a double take, seeing a much smaller toad on Gamabunta's head. Gamakichi. Wow. Dad wasn't kidding. What did that village of yours feed you? Gamakichi said with a laugh. You should have seen it. Dad actually wet himself. It was hilarious. I thought he saw the Shinigami. You little. Gamabunta glowered at his son. I told you not to say anything about that. But yeah, the old guy summoned me and had me ask Dad if we wouldn't mind paying you a visit, Gamakichi explained. What's the matter? Too important to summon us yourself now that you're some big shot with 9 tails. That just makes you 9 times a baby to us toads. Quote. If you were any bigger, I'd flick you into the ocean, Naruto said, his small smile revealing his true feelings. After that, I'd let him too, Gamabunta remarked with a snort. So, Naruto, I hear this is your new home. More like secondary home, Naruto mused, glancing back at the whale carcass. I'd have cleaned up, but I wasn't expecting visitors. Biju need to eat, Gamabunta asked in legitimate surprise. No, but we still taste stuff, Naruto answered. Perfect. That means I didn't waste my time bringing this along, Gamabunta said as he pulled something out from behind his back, that something being a sake bottle, a very gigantic sake bottle, fit for someone of Gamabunta's size, or Naruto's. Consider it a housewarming present, sans the house, Gamabunta said with a chuckle as he popped it open. Quote. Last time, I told you I was underage, Naruto reminded. But since then, I've died and become a giant-ass chakra fox. So, sure. That's the spirits. Gamabunta jabbed as he produced 2 enlarged sake cups. Besides, we never really did seal the whole henchman thing with a proper drink. Naruto snorted. Oh, so that's why you're here. You just wanted to be able to say the Kyuubi is your henchman, he countered as he picked up the cup awkwardly. It was strange. The hands were like a human's, so it was very familiar, to grab a cup like this. But it still felt off, especially while sitting on his haunches like this and how long his snout was. Well, come on, let's see if all that chakra helps you hold your sake. Gamabunta egged on. Naruto shrugged and, in sync, they both started to drink from the cups. Go, 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 go. Gamakichi cheered on, pumping his amphibious hands in the air. Ah, that's the good stuff. Right, Naru boy, Gamabunta said with a laugh. In response, Naruto reached over, grabbed the entire bottle, and proceeded to start chugging it without saying a word. Meanwhile, the 2 humans were watching this unfold with increasing uneasiness. Quote. Did you just turn my student into an alcoholic? Kakashi asked, too dumbfounded to be upset. I didn't know he'd bring booze. Jiraiya defended. I didn't think Bunta was crazy enough to try and get a biju drunk. Apparently he is, Kakashi said, sweat dropping at the scene. And Naruto is still going. You got a taste for it, Gamabunta asked in surprise. The bottle now empty, Naruto put it down and wiped his mouth with the same arm. Not really. Just wanted to see if I could get buzzed, Naruto said in disappointment. Almost did. Then it was gone. I think my chakra burns through it too fast. Oh, I suppose that answers that question, Gamabunta mused. Perhaps something stronger will outpace it. Still, glad we could have this drink. Naruto silently looked back up at the moon. Another time, think you might be able to help me with training. Training, Gamabunta mused, humming on his pipe. I had shitty chakra control to start with. Now it feels, not just that there's more chakra, but it's different, Naruto struggled to explain. I can only imagine, Gamabunta mused. I'm not sure how much help I will be. I might be the size as a biju, but we are entirely different kinds of creatures. Can't hurt, having someone with a similar point of view helping out, Naruto said with a shrug. Point of view? Gamakichi asked with a head tilt before looking between the kitsune and his father. Oh, I see what you did there. Don't do it too often. I have to try to preserve whatever is left of my reputation. Being at your beck and call wouldn't help, Gamabunta stated. Well, about time for us to head home, Naru boy. I hope you sleep well. Farewell. See ya. Gamakichi called out with a wave. Until next time, Naruto answered with a smile as they vanished in a puff of smoke. All at once, Naruto practically flopped onto the beach, moving about to get into a comfortable position to rest. Well, I guess that actually worked, Jiraiya mused. It did, Kakashi agreed, watching his student start to slumber peacefully. So, think he'll regret sleeping in the sand? Please, a flash of chakra and his fur is spotless, Jiraiya retorted with a scoff, tilting his head. Huh, the sake bottle didn't go with Gamabunta. You're right, Kakashi realized, glancing at him curiously as he didn't have much experience himself with giant summons. Is that normal? It's not abnormal, really. Personal stuff like Bunta's blade and vest always go with him. But the stuff they don't mind leaving behind sometimes doesn't, Jiraiya answered. Can't help wondering what Naruto might do with that. Assuming he doesn't break it on accident, Kakashi pointed out, pausing before making an amendment. Or on purpose for that matter. The rest of the night went relatively peacefully, the sun soon rising for another day. Said day formally started once Naruto awoke and, as predicted, dislodged the sand from his fur with a flare of his golden chakra. Good morning, sleeping beauty, Kakashi greeted as he strolled onto the beach, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his novel. I swear you sleep read sometimes, Naruto muttered, letting out a loud and near thunderous yawn. Ah, wow, it feels good not worrying about everyone freaking out when I do that. Trust me, every Anbu that's been undercover for a long time can relate, Kakashi said knowingly. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Do I want to know what the longest time you hid in a small place was? 2 months. Missed my birthday. I almost started humming the birthday song out loud, Kakashi remarked with a sigh. Good times. Amateur, Jiraiya said boastfully as he joined them. My record is 6 months. Did you have research material? Naruto asked bluntly. Maybe. Jiraiya answered evasively. Doesn't count, Naruto remarked flatly. Oh, that's bull and you know it, brat, Jiraiya said before turning more serious. Well, good news, the seals held up fine. Even with that burst of chakra. No idea if they'll last if you got into more intense training, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Great. So, what now? Naruto asked, glancing between them questioningly. Now, Kakashi and I head back to the village, Jiraiya answered bluntly. Ah, Naruto said in understanding. Well, I'll try not to destroy the place before the next shift shows up. Say hi to everyone for me. That's it, Kakashi asked carefully. Thanks for asking, sensei, Naruto said with an honest smile. But I'm not going to start bawling my furry eyes out just because I have to be alone for a day or two. Besides, I'll be heading back with the next shift or the one after that. I'm going to sleep on that mountain at least once a week still. Fair enough, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Remember, try not to break the seals, or you'll have all kinds of tourists, Jiraiya warned. Something Naruto decidedly didn't want. Fame was a nice idea, but he knew he'd have people climbing on him all the time eventually, on dares or just to say they did it. With a wave from the Jonin and the Sanin, they made their leave. Think he'll be fine on his own? Jiraiya asked idly. Cannonball. Instantly, the two jumped into the branches of the trees, heading for the tops. Then they paused, looking around in confusion as they realized there was no rush of water or great flash. Ha! Gotcha! Naruto called out with a grin on his furred face, snickering to himself. Jiraiya gained a tick mark while Kakashi just had an eye smile. I think he'll be just fine. As the two left, Naruto finished his laughter. Well, at least I can still prank people out of boredom, Naruto mused as he watched them leave, or rather heard them. There was a point where their voices and scents became, not fainter, but muted. Like something was blocking it, the barrier no doubt, which meant they were outside it now. He allowed his grin to fall into a frown, glancing off to the side, nostrils flared as he stared into the forest. A lovely pen they've arranged for you, Naruto. Naruto growled low in his throat. I thought that was your smell, Orochimaru. Took you long enough. The snake Sanin chuckled eerily, choosing to remain unseen. Anyone else wouldn't hear the voice from this distance, but Orochimaru might as well be face to face with Naruto for how well the human-turned-Biju could hear him. Oh, so you did sense me on your trip here. Hard not to. You smell rotten as ever, Naruto stated bluntly, snorting in disgust. I'm almost surprised. I thought you were going to reveal me to everyone. Or at least to my old teammate and your dear sensei, Orochimaru continued. I'm not a genius, but I'm pretty sure that you'd find this place eventually even if we scared you off, Naruto answered. So tell me, why are you here and when can you leave? Oh, I didn't expect you to be so willing to listen. Orochimaru asked with an amused hum. I've gained a lot of training in tolerating horrible voices this past week, I'm sure I can stomach yours, Naruto retorted flatly. Perhaps there is a brain in that head of yours, Orochimaru joked. Go hump a rock, Naruto barked back. Whatever you're selling, keep in mind I blame a big part of this on you. This, child, Orochimaru asked coyly. By this, do you mean your ascension? Naruto was sure that the snake Sanin could actually feel his glare at this point. You have power beyond the wildest dreams of most men, even the cages themselves. You are free of the many things that plague humans: hunger, frailty, and let us not forget, mortality, Orochimaru said with an audible grin. I see where this is going now, Naruto said knowingly. You want to become something like a Biju. I suppose that's why you're not still pinning for Sasuke's body. My goal is to learn all there is to know about jutsu and chakra. The Sharingan is a useful tool to that end, there can be no denial. But immortality, true immortality, well now, that would eliminate the greatest obstacle, time itself, Orochimaru stated. Assuming you can even do jutsu anymore if you were like me, Naruto said holding up his front limbs. I still have hands and I still can't do it. A minor setback, I'm sure, for both of us. If nothing else, we're both rather stubborn, Orochimaru said mockingly. I can't argue with that, since you found a way around dying, even if it involves body hopping, Naruto mused before blinking. I suppose that's two things we have in common. Orochimaru made a noise of interest and confusion at that. We both don't have our first bodies anymore, Naruto explained. Ever miss it? Yes, Orochimaru answered knowingly. No skin is quite like your first. Naruto grunted. So, let me take a guess. You want me to let you get some of my furs or something to study, and as a trade, you'll help me find a way to take human form. Naruto listed off neutrally. Pass. Such a shame, Orochimaru mused. Is this the part where we have an epic clash, oh great Kyuubi? No, Naruto answered flatly. No, it's not. Not going to try to fight me. Is the mighty fox wary of the trespassing snake? Orochimaru taunted. More like I don't care to play with a snake's shed skin, Naruto said with a snort. Silence was his answer. I know you're not stupid. You wouldn't come all the way down here in person. You're either a clone or have some weird jutsu to possess somebody. I could be wrong, but by the smell, I'd guess you're using a corpse as some nasty puppet. Clever, Naruto, clever, Orochimaru praised, clapping softly in praise. What I don't understand is what the pervy sage is waiting for, Naruto commented. Summoning. Toad-mouth bind. Orochimaru glared as he suddenly found himself surrounded by a flesh corridor. Well played, I suppose. Thanks, that means so much from an old friend like you, Jiraiya remarked with a dry smirk, on the same tree as Orochimaru, on the opposite side. I was referring to Naruto, Orochimaru countered. Oh well, I suppose there is no use in continuing this. Perhaps we'll come to an arrangement another time, Naruto. Arrange your ass, Naruto snarled. Don't bother, Jiraiya said as he dispelled the summoned toad's stomach. He came around the tree, finding there was indeed a corpse lying against the tree trunk, lifeless eyes staring up. He's already gone. Also, arrange your ass. Yeah, I realized how bad it sounded when I said it, Naruto grumbled. You knew he was following us. I knew someone was, even since you stared at that mountain on the way here, Jiraiya remarked with a frown. Why didn't you say anything before? You mean not wanting to blow whatever plan you had cooked up? Naruto asked with a shrug. I wanted to hear what he had to say. Naruto, relax, I'm not interested. I don't want an Orochi Biju any more than you do, Naruto assured casually. But I wanted to know what he was after. Seemed like something useful to know, what he wants from me. I almost thought, becoming a Biju, was too obvious an answer for him. Don't get me wrong, Naruto, I don't think you'd betray us or anything, Jiraiya assured. Just that I'd be stupid and desperate enough to do it by accident, Naruto finished without accusation. Well, to be fair, you were tricked into stealing the forbidden scroll once, Jiraiya reminded delicately. Oh, yes, an orphan boy was tricked by the one sensei that acted remotely understanding to him, Naruto retorted with an eye roll. Be more alarmed that an academy student could have run off with it if I hadn't stopped to learn from it. Can't argue with that, Jiraiya agreed. Well, the barrier is secure with him gone, if only for now. Yeah, why did you let him find this place? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. I thought we were going to fight him on the way here. Orochimaru is smart enough to figure it out after a while. I wanted to confront him here and now and not leave it to some unlucky Chunin Tsunade assigns to come down here, Jiraiya explained with a frown. You need to be careful, Naruto. It's entirely possible that someone might come here and try to seal you away. It'd probably fail, given you're the Kyuubi now, but still. Naruto frowned. Not a thought he wanted to dwell on more than he had to. He had heard more than a few conversations about sealing him around the village. He imagined a few more were happening now that he was out of earshot of the village. Don't look so glum, Jiraiya said with a sigh. Sealing any Biju isn't easy. You need a strong seal, a vessel that can survive holding one, and you actually have to subdue a Biju. You do? Naruto asked with interest. Jiraiya nodded sagely. Unless it's somehow restrained or overpowered, sealing a fully formed Biju is almost impossible. Any sealing that can be done that quickly is too fragile. Any that take that long, well, if the Biju doesn't kill you before it's done, it certainly won't stand still enough for the impact. That isn't even getting into how powerful the chakra can be and overwhelm the seal or the vessel before it takes hold. Well, good to know someone can't just come right up to me and surprise seal me, Naruto remarked in some relief. Jiraiya nodded. He didn't bother mentioning that the only thing that could normally survive having the Kyuubi sealed into them long-term was someone from the Uzumaki clan. Something they were in short supply as of now. The irony of Naruto's lack of family being a good thing for his continued freedom wasn't lost on Jiraiya. Well, I'll be heading out for real this time. I told Kakashi to hang back in case something went wrong, Jiraiya informed, waving as he departed. Good. I can finally get the snake smell out of my nose. The damn whale leftovers smelled better, Naruto said, snorting hard as he rubbed his nose. Meanwhile, I see you. Those 3 words haunted her mind with every waking moment. I see you. Those words, and that great blue eye, peering into her soul from across time and space. I see you. She knew that if she ever so much as tried to sense out that massive chakra once more, he would see her again. I see you. She could no longer tell if that notion filled her with dread or numbness. I see you, Karen. She stiffened before trying to hide it. Yes, Gensui-sama, I'm sorry, did you say something? I asked how you're doing, Shiroyasha repeated patiently, eyeing the dark rings around Karen's eyes. I already filled for a return to work, Gensui-sama, Karen answered evenly. Yes, but I asked how you're doing, Shiroyasha reiterated, getting only silence. Karen, you were unconscious for 2 days and in the hospital for another. Physically you're fine, but you've refused to answer any questions about what happened. Karen balled her fist, not in anger, but to steady herself. If you're worried I can't do my job as a censor. I'm worried about you, Karen, Shiroyasha stated forcefully. You don't have to explain what happened. But can you give us some idea of what you're going through? Quote. Karen looked down. I think he can still sense me. The Kyuubi, the leader of Grass asked with a raised eyebrow. The new one, yes, Karen answered, refusing to look up still. Every now and then I can feel some spike in his chakra, whenever he's focused on my direction. Quote. Karen, do you think the Kyuubi marked you in some way? Shiroyasha asked carefully. I don't know what he did. Or what I did, Karen answered with a shiver. Just that I am acutely aware of him, more than I was before. Like I'm going to turn around, and he'll be watching me from just over the trees. Shiroyasha looked troubled at that. There was no telling what all of that could mean. Gensui-sama, I'm fine, honestly, Karen assured with a weak smile. I just need to get a good night's sleep for a change. Shiroyasha nodded slowly. Is there anything else? Yes, Karen answered with a frown. I'm not sure if you knew already, but he went south. South? Shiroyasha asked with a raised eyebrow. I don't know why, but I could feel him move further and further away yesterday. Shiroyasha cupped her chin. They're probably keeping the Kyuubi somewhere out of the way so that he's not lurking over the village all the time. I'm sure that even if the village got used to that, it wouldn't be good for customers. That was objectively true, Karen knew. Why haven't they tried to seal him though? Shiroyasha gave her a dry smile. Because having a Jinchuriki is one thing. Having an actual tailed beast as a willing ally. That's terrifying. End of chapter. Yo. Welcome BAKC to another chapter. Here we had Naruto getting 2 very interesting meetings, a friendly one with Gamabunta, and a less friendly one with Orochimaru. Yeah, Naruto has been aware that Orochimaru was following them, but couldn't make sure anyone else knew without giving it away. Luckily, Jiraiya is Jiraiya, and figured it out as well. Also, a little peek into how Karen is doing. Not great, but not too horrible. Naruto really mind her. Which, to be fair, was less to do with what he did and more to do with her being a censor type. Still, all in all, Naruto had eventual start to his new beach home. Until next time, we are not killing our Jinchuriki. The official with a Sokutai hat frowned dramatically. Rakage, need I remind you that the daimyo? This is not the first time a Jinchuriki has died, said without hesitation or wavering. This is the only time one has become a biju. Are you aware of what normally happens? Is the daimyo? The courtier remained silent, knowing the answer. Best case scenario, the biju is gone for couple years before reforming. Worst case, it is released right then and there, leading to devastation and death, answered calmly. We are well aware of the last time the Hachibi broke loose, the courtier said quickly. He flinched back, as if struck, as a stood and slammed his fists through his own desk. Then why are you here, you moron? Declared. I don't know what idiot whispered that into the daimyo's ear, but I'll be amazed if they survive long enough to meet my fists with that stupidity. The courtier attempted to mask his fear with outrage. Now, see here. Konoha has the 9 tails. Declared boldly as he marched forward. Not in a jar, not in a host, but an actual Biju now guards the land of fire. And you want to risk our own Jinchuriki, of being at such a disadvantage for years. The courtier fell backward in fright, attempting to crawl backwards without seeming pathetic. Well, that is a point, perhaps, that I should remind to my lord at my return. Towered over the official from Lightning's capital. Listen well, you worm. Tell the Lord of Lightning that without our Jinchuriki, we could never hope to stop the 9 tails before it ravished the lands, least of all if it is aided by the ninja of Konoha. The official swallowed nervously. You are dismissed, said pointedly, prompting the man to run as fast as his legs could carry him. Mabui silently entered the still open door. That went well. People that know nothing of ninja and ceilings should keep their mouths shut on things like this, said loudly under his breath. Mabui frowned. Do you think it'll come to war? It might have to. This changes the balance of power, said with a distasteful frown. Many already considered Konoha the mightiest of the ninja villages, and they refused to utilize their Jinchuriki as weapons of war. Now they have a Biju that appears loyal to them. Has B heard anything from his Biju? Mabui asked idly. Shook his head. B says the 8th bastard refuses to say anything about it. But Yugito thinks the beasts are sad. Mabui wasn't sure how to process that, so she left it be. Our agents in the land of fire say the Kyuubi has been moved to a beach in the south. Konoha wasn't very secretive. That is one boon. Hiding a Jinchuriki is easy enough, but a creature that massive. Shook his head. I can scarcely imagine what that thing is doing, now that it has space to move and practice its power freely. Meanwhile, Naruto crawled out of the water, spitting a long and giant stream of water out of his mouth. Huh, I made a rainbow. Neat. Naruto said with a smile up at the event. He walked with 3 legs, one of his hands occupied. He brought his hand down, carefully allowing the sands to shift out of his grip before placing down his prize, the wreckage of a sunken ship, taken from the bottom of the bay. He idly looked over the rest of his collection, that consisted of anywhere from 4 to 7 ships. Some of them were still half missing and he wasn't sure which went together yet. Now if I only knew how they put ships in a bottle, then I could surprise the hell out of everyone back in Konoha, Naruto said, glancing to the empty sake bottle off to the side. This is what you're doing. I know that voice, Naruto said with a hum as he turned to see some familiar faces on the beach. Azumo, Katetsu, you finally got off gate duty. The two braced themselves as Naruto approached them, less because of fear and more from just how high they had to look up. Any reason to come to the beach, Katetsu said with a smirk. But seriously, this is what you're doing. I took a break from falling in water, Naruto answered, his fur still dripping wet, making his fluffy tails a rather unimpressive display. And so you now have salvaging as a hobby? Azumo jabbed, glancing at small fleet of wrecks. Or just making the ship version of a junkyard? Naruto snorted as he flared his chakra to dry himself, the tips of one of his wet tails snapping in annoyance towards Azumo's general direction. A curved blade of water shot from Naruto's tail, causing a sizable slice where the beach and forest met, easily big enough to be a cut from Naruto's claw. Did you know you could do that? Azumo asked in surprise. Hell no, Naruto answered, shock melting into excitement. Did I just cast a water jutsu? Does that count as a water jutsu? Sure counts for me, Katetsu said as he ran over to the slice. Damn, this isn't shallow either. That is definitely A rank damage. And I have 9 of them, Naruto said, looking back at the 9 tips of his tails. I'm beginning to see the upsides here. The Kyuubi could never do water attacks though, Azumo said in confusion. Then again, the Kyuubi never went to the beach. Wait a minute, Katetsu said with wide eyes, looking up at Naruto. Can you do that with other stuff? Naruto remained silent and motionless for a second before he laid a tail on the beach, twisting it back and forth in the sand. Then, with a sudden jerk, he struck it out to the ocean with a wave of chakra through it, unleashing a wave of sand. Quote. Oh, Gaara is going to love that, Naruto said with a relishing smirk. Guys, you might want to get away from the beach, maybe on the giant pillars. Well, I think we just kick-started the training marathon, Azumo remarked with a head shake. We should probably listen to. Hey, Naruto, Kotetsu yelled after Naruto, who was walking down the shore. Where are you going? Away from my boat collection. Naruto answered without looking back. Azumo and Kotetsu shared a look at that. We really shouldn't, Azumo said warningly. But imagine if there's something good in them. Kotetsu said, looking at the ships. Yeah, but you want to be stuck inside one when Naruto cannonballs. You did hear Kakashi warn you about that, right? Azumo reminded. Oh, he's not going to do that anytime soon. Not while he's training, Kotetsu waved off. Yes, he's just going to be hurling around more chakra than we can probably comprehend, Azumo said dryly. Exactly, Kotetsu said with a sage nod, ignoring his friend entirely. Besides, I'm sure he heard us talking, he hears everything. Don't remind me, Naruto yelled in the distance. See, it's fine, Kotetsu said assuredly as he headed off to one of the beached wrecks. Azumo paused in consideration. I almost miss the gate now. A few hours later, a thoroughly destroyed section of the beach left Naruto rubbing his chin in thought. Okay, water and sand are easy. Same with earth, though, that turns more into a rain of rocks. Wind is hard to catch with my chakra. Which, I get, it's wind. I can't exactly grab it. Fire. I'm going to put off for the moment. Don't want to burn down all the trees. Naruto murmured. Idly, he stabbed a tail into the ground, his chakra surging through it. Naruto leaned away as a miniature sand twister formed near his back. And I can do that, he mused as he removed his tail, shaking off the sand. Though, if I can do sand, can I do stuff like ice if it was cold enough? The topic of ice made Naruto's mind drift back to an old enemy and friend of his. His eyes looked eastward, towards the land of waves and the grave of Haku. From that self-proclaimed tool, he had learned the value of fighting to protect those he cared about. The sight of the setting sun on Konoha from his perch atop the Hokage monument flashed in his eyes, with Sakura sitting on his snout with a smile on her face. That much hadn't changed about him. Something on your mind? Azumo asked idly. Naruto glanced to him and raised a great brow. There's an octopus over your shoulder. It was in one of your ships, Azumo answered with a shrug. Never tried to fry one of these things so, you know, something new to try. Naruto said nothing to that, glancing back out over the horizon. We're, going to be setting up camp on one of the pillars, since it's getting late, Azumo offered. Enjoy the view then, Naruto answered idly. Quote. Seriously, is there something wrong? Making me a bit worried here, Azumo asked in concern. No, just lost in thought, Naruto mused. They ever say what they were doing about Sasuke? Azumo blinked, a small scowl on his face. He's not seeing daylight anytime soon. That's all we know. Naruto sighed and shook his head. Stupid bastard. Ruined things for both of us. My dream and his revenge. Looks like neither of us will get what we wanted. Azumo remained silent, knowing those words weren't really for him. The giant fox rolled his massive shoulders as he stood. Well, no use sulking about it, Naruto decided as he headed back to the waters. Azumo watched in fascination as Naruto's hands and feet made contact with the water, bobbing in the water as he attempted to walk on the water before ultimately falling through into the shallows. Well, shallows for a biju. Then he brought his hand up and tried again. Definitely still him. Just keeps pushing along, Azumo said with a bit of relief, watching as the golden figure slowly began to vanish beneath the surface of the water. Naruto, trying to so much as hover underwater, continued his small trek on the seafloor as his fur swayed in the water. Something bumped against his nose, prompting him to stop in surprise. It was a shark, a rather large one, who was staring at Naruto with an animalistic confusion. Then it bit his nose. Above water, Azumo and Kotetsu looked up as a very large explosion erupted at sea, launching something into the air with a voice echoing from the deep. Off. Both of them, from their perch on the mountainous pillars, watched as something flew through the sky and fell into the waters. Is that a shark? Azumo asked, squinting at the object. Talk about biting off more than you can chew, Kotetsu remarked. More like natural selection, Azumo said with a headshake. Next day. Hey, gate guys. Wake your asses up. Azumo and Kotetsu jumped from their bedrolls next to their campfire, as they rose to the edge and saw Naruto looking up at them. What the? Naruto. Kotetsu yelled down. Are we being attacked or are you a nine-tailed rooster now? Is something wrong? An intruder? Azumo asked with a frown. Nope. Naruto answered, crossing his arms. Pack your shit and get something in your stomach, we're going back to Konoha. The two shared a look at that. Why? Kotetsu asked in bewilderment. We just got here yesterday. Because I feel like it, Naruto answered bluntly. I've been here for the better half of a week. So either get ready or I'm not giving you a free ride home. Quote. Can he really just go back without warning anyone? Kotetsu asked in a whisper. Yes, I can, Naruto interrupted in annoyance. Looks like we don't have a choice, and our job is to keep an eye on him, Azumo remarked, turning back to their little campsite. Less than an hour later, Naruto was making his trek back to Konoha. Mostly retracing his path from the first time. Well, this is going to be like a giant road or something if you keep sticking to this path, Kotetsu remarked as he looked back, seeing Naruto's footprints from his coming and going to the beach. So, why the sudden desire to head back to the village? Azumo asked from between Naruto's shoulders. Like I told Kakashi-sensei and the pervert, I'm staying at the village at least once a week, Naruto said bluntly. You seemed pretty happy about getting your own space though, Kotetsu remarked. Well, yeah, but that's like being happy you can leave your house finally. You don't want to be cooped up all the time, but you want to come home still, Naruto explained. I guess that makes sense, Kotetsu decided, glancing back at Naruto's tails. So, what's it like? Naruto grunted questioningly. Having 9 tails. And I don't mean 9 tails of chakra, I just mean 9 actual tails, Kotetsu asked, watching them moves around. Mostly in unison, but 1 or 2 would sometimes twitch out in their own direction. Naruto started, hesitating. It's hard to explain. They're a bit like arms, but it's hard to remember just how flexible they are. Controlling them all at once is hard, unless it's something simple. Avoid this spot, lay down, stay behind me and don't sway all over the place. Using 1 or 2 for more, specific things isn't too hard. They all feel weird as hell, like I have tiny legs sprouted just above my ass. Quote. Tiny legs? Azumo asked, trying not to laugh at the description. Tiny to me, Naruto reasoned. I'm telling you, those tails are 90% fluff. Definitely one of my weirder missions, Kotetsu decided with a head shake and nearly fell off as Naruto suddenly came to a stop. Wow, what now? Little old lady crossing. Azumo frowned as he noticed Naruto sniffing the air. What is it? I don't know, Naruto said, his voice free of all humor as a dark look crossed about his face. I know this scent from somewhere though, and I don't like it. Azumo looked to the north, the direction of the village. The village is close now. I know, Naruto answered pointedly, his ears raised. Nothing seems wrong here, Kotetsu pointed out. We should just head on, we can just report it to the Hokage. I know, Naruto repeated with narrowed eyes. Both Chunin resigned themselves as Naruto treaded off the path. No other settlements were nearby, so at least that wasn't a concern. Naruto's strides got longer and faster. Azumo and Kotetsu said nothing, merely holding on while watching for anything out of the ordinary. Then, without warning, Naruto reached his hand out towards the ground. His hands landed not with a loud slam but with a firm thud. You okay, Shika? Ino, Choji? Naruto asked suddenly. Oh, thanked Kami, it's just Naruto, Ino said in relief. I thought it was some other giant monster. Naruto normally took offense to unironically being called a monster. He did not, however, take issue to being summarized as a giant monster, in terms of what he was. Somehow, adding giant to it made it sound more descriptive and less insulting. Deciding now was the best time to investigate, Kotetsu and Azumo leapt down to the forest and found the second generation of the Ino-Shika Cho trio lying on the ground from the impact of Naruto's blow. What happened? Who are? Azumo started, glancing back at Naruto's palm. To his horror, something was managing to budge the giant hand, just a little. Or, who were you fighting? Thanks, Naruto, for not crushing me. Choji said in relief, particularly close to Naruto's fist. Yeah, Choji, are these two idiots relatives of yours? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow as he tilted his palm to partially expose the enemies in question, their heads sticking out. Look, Raijin, a giant meal, all for us. One said, looking up at Naruto with drool on his face. I've never eaten a fox before, Fujin. The other declared. Really stupid relatives. Naruto clarified. It's the legendary stupid brothers, Azumo said with a sigh. Quote. Naruto blinked, twice. Oh, wow, you're not saying that as a joke, are you? No, and they're supposed to be in prison, Kotetsu remarked in exasperation. Huh, brother, do we know them? Fujin asked in confusion. I think they fed us snacks back at the clubhouse, Raijin answered. I am not even going to ask, Naruto said, getting a tick mark as they kept struggling. Stop that, I'm trying to not burst you like blood pimples. Do you know how hard it is to step on an ant without crushing it? Think they're more like beetles for you, Shikamaru remarked as he addressed the Chunin. There was a jailbreak. We were helping search for them and another. I know, Naruto said flatly, making Shikamaru frown. Can you two deal with these two? Quote. I mean, if we get some food, they'll probably go back on their own, Kotetsu suggested. You have food? The stupid brothers asked instantly. Oh, come on, even I'm not that bad. Choji said in disbelief. Luckily, we packed some for the road, Azumo remarked as he pulled out some jerky. Okay, let them up. Just be ready in case they try anything. Naruto obliged, watching in frustrated fascination as the two very large brothers stood up, not only unfazed by being held down by a biju, but now having seemed to forget that he even existed. That anything else existed besides the prospect of food, hence their intent stares at Azumo and Kotetsu. Here, you big lugs, Azumo said, as he and Kotetsu threw the pieces of food at them. The brothers caught them mouth first, instantly grinning in stupidly good-natured ways. Quote. That was all we needed to do. Ino hissed under her breath. Why didn't they send a chef to catch them? Or, just tell them there's more food back at the prison. Naruto suggested. There is, Raijin and Fujin declared in sync. Race you, brother Fujin. Raijin challenged as he bolted away. No fair, brother Raijin. Fujin called after, still grinning away. Quote. The just happened? Naruto asked, utterly stupefied. Azumo sighed. We should probably go after them, make sure they actually get to prison. They might forget why they ran back to begin with. Wait, there's still, Ino looked up at Naruto awkwardly. What part of, I know, did you not get? Naruto asked, looking around the area. Well, are you going to just hide like a baby, Mizuki? Silence reigned. Naruto sighed as he looked to the Chunin. You two, keep an eye on those idiots. Shikamaru, you guys go warn someone back in Konoha that they might actually try to break back to prison. You could just yell it and the village will probably hear, Kotetsu reminded. Right, Shikamaru said with a sigh. We'd probably just be in your way at this point. With that, all 5 of them departed, leaving Naruto seemingly alone. Seemingly. Come on, Mizuki. I can smell you. You honestly reek of hate and fear, Naruto said with a snort as he strolled around the forest, scanning it for any sight of the traitor. What's the matter, sensei? Fox got you tongue. Not a soul dared answer him. Naruto knew he was getting close, lowering his head as his nose sniffed just below the canopy. You know, I can smell a bit of Orochimaru on you. I guess that's why you came back to the village. He have some secret stash of dirty toys you wanted to plunder? Naruto asked, as if he was having a casual conversation. Hope you cleaned whatever you got. Never know where he's had his stuff. Someone tried to flee with a body flicker and Naruto grinned. He leapt forth, shaking the ground with his hand swiping out to swipe away a section of trees. A flash of silver caught Naruto's eyes. Got you. His hand reached out, snapping shut on his prey. A bloody scream echoed in his ears as he pulled up, seeking Mizuki's head peek out of his fist. Well, Mizuki-sensei, I see prison has been good to you. Had to bulk up before someone made you their prison bitch or something? Naruto asked with a smirk. You damn monster, you broke my arm. Mizuki screamed. Like I said, it's hard to step on a bug without crushing it, Naruto repeated darkly. I knew I was right about you. Damn monster. You were the fox the whole time, biding your time. Mizuki screamed, his eyes mad with rage and terror. Naruto looked thoroughly unimpressed. Yeah, heard it all already. Let me go, you demon. Mizuki yelled. I was so close to finally. Naruto just stared at Mizuki, who fell into a silence of frustrated defeat. Naruto. Iruka-sensei. Naruto said in surprise as he turned to see the instructor heading towards him with a kunoichi in tow. Well, this feels familiar, Mizuki. You caused trouble, I beat you up and Iruka cleans up after us. Just like old times. Naruto, Iruka said uncomfortably. That's enough, please. Just hold him long enough for the Anbu to take him in. Naruto tilted his head at Iruka again before glancing to the woman again. She startled under his gaze, but it wasn't fear in her eyes. Or at least not the kind of fear he expected. She looked almost pleadingly at him as her eyes kept glancing to Mizuki. Quote. Looks like you have someone that cares about you, Naruto muttered, looking back to Mizuki, who only glared in return. Naruto sighed at what he saw. And you don't even care, do you? Quote. Don't act like you know anything about it, demon. You can drop the act already. You're not even hiding what you are anymore, so just get on with it already. We both know you have every reason to destroy the village. Mizuki barked out hatefully. Mizuki, that's enough. Iruka yelled with a glare of his own, wishing his old comrade was a bit closer to the ground and in taijutsu range. It's fine, sensei, Naruto waved off with his free hand. I've had worse. Honestly, it's sad, I've heard literal children say more original insults than you. Stop acting like you're human, Mizuki demanded with some weird, crazed bloodlust about him. Tell you what, I'll consider acting like a demon when you start acting like a decent human being, Naruto retorted cheekily. And seriously, chasing Orochimaru's coattails. Sasuke did it better. What are you even on about? Mizuki asked in confusion. Naruto blinked, looking to Iruka. They don't exactly give prisoners weekly reports on how the village is doing, Naruto, Iruka informed with a sigh. Right, Naruto said, his face shifting in thought. Fancy seeing you here, old hag. Right on cue, Tsunade appeared on Naruto's head. Fancy you catching our runaway, Tsunade remarked with a smirk, staring daggers into Mizuki's form. I ran into Shikamaru and his team. You picked a perfect time to visit, Naruto. You're telling me, Naruto said as he lowered Mizuki down to the ground and suddenly released him. What are you? Mizuki started, only to be surrounded by 4 Anbu, one holding a kunai to his throat. Quote dot dot dot. Oh. With that, he was bound and restrained as Tsunade came down to flick him on the head, leaving him groaning and almost crying on the ground in pain. We're going to have a nice long chat about what you were planning before sending you back behind bars, Mizuki, Tsunade said factually. Lady Hokage, the kunoichi said. May I have a moment with Mizuki? Tsunade frowned at her. And you are Tsubaki, my lady, she answered softly. Naruto couldn't see Tsunade's face from this angle, but he knew her eyes hardened at that. I see. And I'm just supposed to trust you weren't helping him. Hiding him. Lady Hokage, Iruka started, until Tsunade held up her hand. You may, Tsunade said to Tsubaki. You'd be stupid to try anything with all of us here. Tsubaki didn't glance to the Anbu or the Hokage at that, but to Naruto himself. He would be lying if he didn't feel a bit sheepish at that. He didn't listen to whatever Tsubaki and Mizuki said to one another. He focused on absolutely anything else, mostly other ninja in the distance. But whatever it was, as Mizuki was pulled to his feet by the masked Anbu, Naruto knew Mizuka hadn't said anything kind or comforting, judging by the tearful look on Tsubaki's face. Before they took him away, the silver-haired traitor turned to glare up at Naruto. You will always be a monster. Naruto the human would have bristled and gritted his teeth at that. Naruto the Biju brought his head low to the ground. Mizuki's hate slowly gave way to fear, trying to jerk away. The Anbu held him firm, and Tsunade made no move to stop Naruto. Neither did Iruka, or Tsubaki. At last, Naruto's enormous snout was in front of Mizuki. A long, harsh snort came from Naruto's nose, Mizuki nearly jumping out of his skin. Then, Naruto opened his jaw. Slow, and just enough to see through the vast fangs, to feel the heavy breath. Then why are you still alive? The cold, toneless question shook Mizuki as he stared into his personal image of the Shinigami, as if only now comprehending how painfully easy this monster could kill him. After all, it's very hard to step on an ant without killing it. Naruto snarled in disgust as he pulled back. Naruto? Tsunade asked with a quirk eyebrow. He pissed himself, Naruto informed with displeasure. I'm done with him. You, old hag. Take him away, Tsunade called out, the Anbu nodding as they left. Iruka, escort Tsubaki back to the village. I have a few questions for her and you as well. Iruka nodded solemnly, forcing a smile to Naruto despite the mood. Thanks, Naruto. I'll stop by the mountain later if you're there. You know it, Naruto said with a half-hearted chuckle of his own. Lady Tsunade, Tsubaki said with a deep bow of respect. With some hesitation and uncertainty, she also bowed her head to Naruto. And, thank you, for sparring him, Lord Naruto. With that, they too departed, leaving the Godime Hokage and Nadaime Kyuubi alone in the forests outside Konoha. Lord Naruto, Tsunade asked with a teasing tone. Well, the daimyo did give me that beach, so, that technically makes me, lord, of that place, right? Naruto pointed out with a joke smile. Tsunade thought about that for a moment before conceding. Can't argue with that logic. But, moving on, got tired of the beach? Tsunade asked curiously. Got tired of being away from home, Naruto answered with a shrug. Besides, you guys apparently fall to pieces while I'm gone. What's that supposed to mean? Tsunade asked flatly. I was gone for less than a week and you guys have a jail break. Naruto pointed out, somehow both amused and frustrated. Seriously, are the emergencies literally going to wait until I leave to happen? Yes, you idiot. You're a giant guard fox looming over Konoha. People are afraid to pickpocket with you around. Tsunade pointed out. It's a ninja village. They should be afraid to pickpocket on principle. Naruto countered, finding the idea hilarious. But seriously, a jail break. Did Sasuke break out? 'Cause if he did, I will honestly be a bit pissed off. No, he didn't, Tsunade said with an eye roll. Given how valuable he is, we kept him secure in Konoha. Quote. Naruto stared at her for a long moment of concern. I don't like that look, Tsunade said with a frown. Are you sure he didn't bust out in the middle of this? Naruto asked, something almost a whine to his voice. Cause knowing your luck. Oh, go slump on your perch and get your tails in a knot. I'll have them check his cell, Tsunade said with a huff as she headed back to the village. If she looked back, she'd see a smiling Nine Tails. End of chapter. Shout out to Elite Shadow who predicted that Naruto would be pulling up some sunken ships and deal with sea creatures. I swear, dude, I already had that written out and didn't steal the idea, but I kept laughing when I read your spot-on guess. Well, had some fun stuff here. The sprinkling in of how Naruto's situation affects another country, aka Kumo, and Naruto comes back to help deal with a jailbreak. Look, say what you want about Naruto filler, at least it fits in the timelines as opposed to Bleach's fillers. I honestly liked several of the filler arcs, and they happen to be useful for certain things in this FIC. Anyway, yeah, Mizuki got to see Naruto as the Kyuubi and Naruto got to have one of his darker moments. Look, he's grumpier but he's still about as good aligned as he was pre-bijufication. But as seen with his mind of Karen, he has his moments. Also, brief explanation on Naruto messing around with elements. Back in the earlier days of Naruto, I always assumed that Kurama had a fire-based chakra, given that's a common kitsune thing. The eight-tailed scene in the pain fight kind of implies that. But besides that, he doesn't have much of an elemental thing going. All the others do, albeit some are niche. However, given that Kurama is unique among the Biju, I think he can technically do all of the elements to some extent, when he isn't split in two yin-yang halves at least. He just chooses not to because he can already brute chakra force most issues. Naruto Bang Naruto is more interested in figuring out what he can do, hence this. That's about it for now. Next chapter you'll find out where Sakura was in all of this. The people of Konoha were more than a little aware of the rumbling under their feet, the only warning they had before a mountain of golden fur walked up onto the Hokage monument. I'm back, people. Naruto's declaration was met mostly with silence, but the worry left their souls with a collective sigh of relief. Yeah, screw you too, assholes. Not everyone, they know who they are, Naruto said as he took a seat, more or less in the same spot he had last time. You choose a rather interesting time to return, Kakashi greeted as he appeared on top of a nearby tree. Hey, sensei. That porn new? Naruto asked casually. It's an uncut edition, Kakashi answered with an eye smile. Make any giant sandcastles after I left? No, Naruto answered in confusion. Well, that's almost disappointing, Kakashi mused. I assume by that display I saw earlier, you helped resolve our little situation. Yeah, I did, Naruto answered as he scanned over the village. Sakura out on a mission? Kakashi sighed. Team 7 is effectively broken, Naruto. Given yours and Sasuke's situations, she's bouncing between teams for now. Naruto hummed, displeased but resigned in understanding as his ears started to twitch. Something wrong? Kakashi asked with a head tilt. Some of the clients are gawking at me, Naruto answered awkwardly. At least they're more amazed than afraid. Oh, yeah, more clients are making trips to the village in person in hopes of a chance to see, well, you, Kakashi informed. Neat, Naruto said with a grin. So this is what positive attention feels like. I seem to recall hearing you had quite a lot of people cheering for you back at the Chunin exams, Kakashi reminded in amusement. And I seem to recall you being extra late that time, Naruto retorted blankly. Like stupidly, overly late. The kind of late you get when your alarm silently breaks in the middle of the night. Either my student was as prepared as possible or he survived by virtue of not participating. In that exact instance, those weren't bad options to me, Kakashi admitted. Fair, Naruto conceded. Sasuke might be a bitter subject, but not so much that he couldn't talk about him. To Kakashi at least. And you weren't worried about me because. Honestly, I was hedging my bets that, in the worst case scenario, the old Kyuubi being able to help you more than I possibly could, Kakashi admitted. And, Lord Jiraiya was back in town. Yeah, I was beginning to think that wasn't a coincidence, Naruto muttered before gaining a tick mark as his head shot back over his shoulder. And who the hell is in my tail? Kakashi blinked, body flickering onto Naruto's head, deciding it was best to see this for himself. Konohamaru, I swear, if that's you in there. Naruto warned, glaring at a very specific tail. Needless to say, most of the village was watching curiously, wondering just who had been dumb enough to do something like that. A head of purple hair popped up. Snake Lady, I warned. Naruto started only to stop and look back into the village. More specifically, an owlish Anko right outside her favorite place to get dango, the treat in her mouth. Wait, if Anko's there. Naruto said, turning to look at the figure in confusion. The person pulled themselves fully out of the fur, revealing an Anbu mask. Did you assume that Anko was the only purple-haired woman in the village? She asked neutrally. To his defense, it's not exactly far from the truth, Kakashi mused, waving to her. Cat. Dog. She returned before focusing on Naruto again. Honestly, I thought she'd be the only one with purple hair crazy enough to go poking around in my tail, he said, wiggling the exact appendage she was in, reminding her of his annoyance. Apologies. I was attempting to cross while you were moving and I may have underestimated how easy it would be to fall into your tail, she said as she began to pull herself loose, leaping away to land in a tree. I don't think anyone has tried to use chakra to walk on your tails before, Kakashi mused, cupping his chin in thought. Try it, sensei, and I promise you're not getting off as easily as she did, Naruto warned dryly. Also, yeah, off, hag. I have a right to worry about that. Do I want to know? Kakashi asked warily. I asked Tsunade to make sure Sasuke didn't escape in all of this, Naruto answered. Upon hearing that he was still in his cell, her words were, I told you, brat. Ah, so normal for you both, Kakashi decided with a nod. Naruto. With Kakashi still on his head, Naruto looked down and saw a familiar runt running up to him. Hey, Konohamaru, Naruto greeted as he leaned down and instantly startled. Wait, why do you have a black eye? Is that from training or is some asshole picking on you? Black eye, boss, what are you talking about? Konohamaru asked, reaching up to rub his eyes. When he removed his hand, one of them was stained black. What the? He instantly pulled off his goggles and examined the inside. Miyogi put ink in my goggles. Ahahaha. You got pranked. Naruto laughed out, his whole body racked with mirth. Nice one, Miyogi. Considering all the tails and teeth, it was fairly terrifying to behold for many. But Miyogi just snickered to herself as she shared a high five with Udon. Shut it, it's not funny. Konohamaru exclaimed, crossing his arms with a pout as Naruto laughed. Not funny. No, not at all, Naruto said sarcastically, slowly containing his humor to mere chuckles. I'd offer to help, but my way of cleaning wouldn't work. Would it though? Konohamaru asked in thought. Naruto's pause was telling, and concerning. Naruto, no, Kakashi warned sternly. Oh, I wasn't going to use it on him. I'm not always smart, but I'm not that reckless, Naruto stated. I think some of your friends would agree to disagree with that, Kakashi said. Oh, they are, Naruto said, glaring out at the village at someone in particular. Yeah, I see you, Shikamaru. Anyway, what's the worst that could happen? The goggles blow up. Yes, Kakashi answered flatly. Cool, let's try it. Konohamaru agreed with an eager grin. You want to blow up your goggles? Kakashi called down. Kakashi, he's a kid. Blowing up stuff is either terrifying or awesome at that age. There is no in between, Naruto reminded bluntly. I think I was an exception to that, Kakashi stated evasively. Either way, No, we're not testing what your chakra will do if you poured it into the goggles. Quote. GGGGGHH. Konohamaru groaned in disappointment. Well, that let down out of the way, you just come up to say hi. Naruto asked curiously. Huh, oh, right, no, I didn't. Konohamaru remembered, suddenly taking a pose while pointing at Naruto accusingly, who blinked at the sudden shift. You ran off to the beach without even saying goodbye. Naruto raised a large brow at the complaining child. Konohamaru, go home. Why? Konohamaru asked in bewilderment. Go home, lie on your bed, and don't move at all for 2 days straight, Naruto said pointedly. Then you can complain all you want. Konohamaru looked almost intimidated by the prospect before looking to the side in annoyance. You still could have at least said goodbye. I did. To the whole village, Naruto said, but half conceding that point all the same. Look, I would have brought back a souvenir, but all I have on that beach are whale bones and sunken ships. Wait, really? Konohamaru exclaimed. Why didn't you bring any of those back? You kind of walked into that, Kakashi pointed out with an eye smile. Yeah, I'd facepalm if you weren't on my head, Naruto agreed in exasperation. Well, is there anything else cool at your beach? Konohamaru asked eagerly. Well, there are these giant rock pillar things. And a biju-sized sake bottle, Naruto mused. What? Tsunade yelled from the Hokage Tower, audible from elsewhere. Don't get too excited, hag. I already drank it all. Don't worry, it did absolutely nothing to me, Naruto assured her in the village, before his eye twitched in annoyance. Of course, she wasn't worried about a drunken biju, she was jealous she didn't get any. There are days we're all glad she and Jiraiya didn't get one another's summons, Kakashi said with a head shake. Moving on, anything interesting happen with you, Konohamaru? Naruto asked idly. Well, I tried asking Iruka-sensei if we could learn that tree climbing thing you mentioned, but he said we'll learn that after we graduate, Konohamaru answered with a pout. Naruto paused before looking up towards his forehead where Kakashi stood. Quote. Okay, I know he's a bit young, but that kind of feels like something that should have been touched on in the academy. I can answer that. It's a holdover from the village's younger days. There is a certain level we didn't want people to learn before becoming full-fledged ninjas of the village, Kakashi explained. Otherwise, you'd have dropouts that might be using the skills they picked up in the academy for less than legal activities. Naruto saw some points to that. Only a third of the students truly passed every year. So that meant 2/3 had to retry or look to other paths in life. The standard 3 academy jutsu weren't that dangerous. Normal clones couldn't interact with anything, transformations were mainly for disguises, and replacement was mainly a last-ditch lifesaver. I get that things were worse way back then, but I don't entirely agree with that these days, Naruto remarked. At least teach the brats tree walking. We're the damn hidden leaf. You'd think we'd have toddlers learning to tree crawl before they could walk. Kakashi looked up in thought. I'm not sure that's a point in your favor, but I still agree with the sentiment. Yeah, you're right, boss. Konohamaru agreed. Konohamaru, you're just agreeing because you want a ride to the beach, Naruto countered knowingly. That's not true. Konohamaru defended himself. You want to use it to reach the top shelves on your own, don't you? Kakashi predicted with an eye smile. Konohamaru froze as if stricken, utterly discovered as he suddenly fiddled with the ground with his foot. Good call, sensei, Naruto said with a chuckle. Meanwhile, so, you're looking to find someone to take you on as an apprentice? Kurenai asked potentially as they walked through the forest path, each of them carrying a large basket strapped to their backs. Sakura nodded absently. She had been sent with Team 8 on their first mission since Kiba and Akamaru recovered from the Sasuke retrieval mission. Mostly for the extra body for this particular mission, but also just so Sakura could go on a mission at all. I was thinking about asking Lady Tsunade, but given everything. Kiba scoffed. Yeah, everyone's a bit busy because of Naruto. Shino's clan has had their bugs acting up since day one. Shino gave his friend a silent look before addressing the subject. Naruto's chakra is immense and rich. Our Kikaichu find it hard to resist sometime. Really? I'm amazed Naruto never mentioned feeling any on him, Sakura mused. You do remember how big he is, right? Kiba deadpanned. He wouldn't regardless, Shino continued. They die from overfeeding long before they reach him. Oh, Sakura said in surprise. Sorry. It's not your fault. Or Naruto's. We just need to train them not to seek his chakra out, Shino assured. Back to the topic at hand, are you asking me to take you on? Kurenai asked with a raised eyebrow. No, I mean don't get me wrong, I'd be honored. But you still have these three to teach, Sakura said, waving to Shino, Kiba, and Hinata. Sakura swore the Hyuga princess was quieter than normal, but couldn't say for sure. That's good, Kurenai said with a smile. Because I don't think you'd be a good match for me. Sakura tilted her head curiously. I've heard about your impressive chakra control. By that alone, you have the potential for genjutsu, Kurenai started. But from everything I've seen and Kakashi has told me, you're more of a hands-on type of kunoichi. You have a point, Kurenai-sensei, Sakura admitted in thought. Do you have any ideas? Well, if you want a fellow kunoichi, Anko might be willing to take you on, Kurenai suggested. The proctor from the Chunin exams. She is rather intense, Sakura recalled cautiously. She can be, Kurenai agreed knowingly. There are a few I could recommend if you want to take up using a sword. A sword? Sakura repeated thoughtfully. I'd have to give that a try before I say anything. I've never used anything longer than a kunai. Yeah, it's not easy, Kiba admitted, getting surprised looks. What? I thought swords were cool when I was a kid and decided to try my hand at learning some techniques. Did not go well for me, I'll leave it at that. You almost chopped off Akamaru's ear or something, didn't you? Sakura deduced. They weren't real swords. Kiba barked back. But yeah, if they had been, he might be missing an ear. The small dog grumbled at that. Ultimately, it's one part about your skills, but also about what kind of ninja you want to be, Kurenai remarked. I have a bit of an artistic touch. That's what got me into genjutsu originally. What kind of ninja? Sakura murmured. Watch out. Sakura blinked as Hinata grabbed her by the back of the shirt, just as she was about to walk out onto a sudden drop in the group. Thanks, Hinata, Sakura said in relief, smiling back at her. Hinata didn't quite smile as she looked away shyly. Why, you're welcome. Sakura frowned before looking forward. So, this is why we're out here, she remarked as she looked out over the area. The path and forest abruptly ended, giving way to a large crater that curved down several feet before flattening. In it were trees and stones, broken and crushed into the dirt. This is where Naruto walked through, Kurenai confirmed needlessly, looking out over the giant paw print. Or was it a handprint? The farmer that hired us was delivering an order when it happened. His horses and cattle won't come near here still. That won't cause any problems for Naruto, will it? Hinata asked in concern. It shouldn't. This was the daimyo's idea after all, Sakura mused. Kiba, what's wrong? Shino asked suddenly. Everyone looked at the Inuzuka who was staring very intently at the paw print. One moment, Kiba said as he took off his basket and jumped up into tea.